Hey everyone, Zach here. Before we start Lafayette Part 2, we wanted to give a quick shout out to our friend Ethan Healy and his show, Out of Many, One. Blame it on our punk rock mentality, but we love supporting our peers. Here's his ad for his show, and I swear, you guys will love this. You need to check out his show. It's super fucking interesting shit. Alright, love you, bye.
E pluribus unum is the motto of the United States of America, and with that motto comes a great responsibility and understanding of the United States history. Not only are we one, but we are many that make up of one. Hi, I'm Ethan, and I'm the host of Out of Many, One, a U.S. history podcast. And I hope that through my podcast, you are able to experience and understand America's journey through the themes of the historical lens. Please find me wherever you get your podcasts.
It's time to learn with the History Boiz.
Everybody, it's the History Boys back again. I am Christopher Whedon, and I am a history boy. Excited to talk about our boy again, Laffy Taffy, as I call him. We covered the dark origins of Laffy Taffy last time.
I'm Tyler Armstrong. I'm a history boy, as always, and I feel like a bag of pristine assholes. Zach?
Hi,
How do you feel?
my name is Zach Mack, and I am fucking hung the fuck over. This whole getting old shit needs to stop, man. Like, I'm not liking it.
He had a teaspoon of Dimetap, and now he wants to die.
He had two spritzers and he's gone.
I had 3 fucking
Spritzers.
White Claws and 2 shots of Jameson last night, and oh my god, my whole body is just
I think that would do it for me.
destroyed.
You're gonna love 37. I have like half a light beer on a Thursday, and I'm hungover till Sunday.
And I'm a history boy.
While we're at it.
While we're at it. And I'm Jerry Nash, as always a history boy. Thank you so much for listening. Today we are talking about Marquis de Lafayette, Part 2.
Part D.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hot Shots Part 2.
But the hot shots are the loads coming out of fucking Lafayette and slinging left and right.
Jesus.
Just making babies. Some of them die, some of them don't, whatever.
Oh my god.
Those are the times. What are you gonna do?
I can't wait till we get to the political cartoons.
Oh, God. Did everyone see those?
Yes.
Okay.
No.
Lots of,
If only they were scratch and sniffable cartoons too.
Yeah.
Smells like old cheese.
enough about Marie Antoinette.
Nice. Got her.
So last time we left you, Lafayette was instrumental in the last battle of the American War for Independence, Yorktown, where there were more French casualties than American. I don't think I mentioned that last time, but if you count the dead at Yorktown, there's more French than American there. So we don't win Yorktown without the French.
Yeah, we wouldn't win that war without the French.
No, certainly not. Certainly not.
Maybe.
Lafayette probably, other than George Washington, Lafayette is like the main contributing factor for why we won that war.
Well, the French are like, we do everything 3 times as hard. Have you seen the way we have sex?
Okay.
A menage a trois.
Yeah, right?
I got it.
I
Yeah,
understand.
see,
I
it's
understand.
funny, Jerry.
Okay.
Yeah, Jerry. I didn't get it either, so.
That's why I'm
Like,
here.
I get it, they fuck super hard. You send me the links.
Yes, send me the links. We've been through this.
That was research?
Not those links, the other links.
The other links. So, he was returning to France as the hero of 2 worlds. That's what people called him. He was appointed as an advisor to the American envoys abroad.
Cool.
So, Ben Franklin in Paris, John Adams in The Hague, and John Jay in Madrid.
The gamble has paid off.
I-
Big time.
Big time!
We've
Big
mentioned
time.
The Hague in a few episodes, and I just want to say, every time I hear that, I'm like, that is a really strange name for a city.
It is, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's like the Hulk.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it is in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Hulk is Dutch.
Dutch, yeah.
As we all know.
He is.
You can tell by his hat.
It was the clogs for me.
Yes, some goofy wooden shoes. Anyway, that would be great. That's a Marvel movie I would watch.
Dutch Hulk.
Dutch Hulk, absolutely.
Dolk.
He's like, I don't want to do anything. I just want to sit here with my windmills.
Yeah, my windmills and my coffee and my marijuana.
And my
tulips.
Yes.
Tulips. Yeah.
There you go.
True.
So when he returned to France in 1782, he was hailed as a hero by everyone, including the king. And the king just made him a general and a knight. You know, like, he skipped a bunch of ranks, because keep in mind, he was a second lieutenant when he left, but he gets back, and they're like, you're a general now. Cool. And he's like, dope.
It's like when you do a Greater Rift with, like, a level 1 character in Diablo, and you kill the boss, and you go up, like, 15 levels, and you're like, sweet.
It's exactly what happened to him.
Yep. He did go into a greater rift.
Yeah.
He killed a giant demon.
Yeah.
Called the Monarchy.
But it's...
Nice.
The Hôtel de Lafayette, his new lavish home, was built in Paris on the Rue de Bourbon, which is where all of the Americans hung out. You know, this is where, like, their homes were... Yeah, it's where they stuck. It was, like, their headquarters, this area.
It was one of those insufferable expat bars that you see in Southeast Asia, and it's just fat white guys just completely, like, acting like they're king shit the entire time. You know
that's accurate. I mean, these fat white guys acting like they're king shit the whole time.
You're like, I want a little bit of the
They
local
do that
flavor.
here?
Yeah.
Sorry.
You want some of the local flavor, and then you end up at, like, Yankee Joe's, and they're like, do you want a cheeseburger? You're like, I flew 3,000 miles for this, 10,000 miles for this.
And a Budweiser?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's like, great.
I'm pretty sure I've been in a tiki bar in every European city I've ever been to.
That's great.
That's because of my wife. She loves a tiki bar.
But I mean, like, if you think about, like how often do you think British dudes come to America and are like, give me some of that local American flavor, and it's like, English style pub. Cool, bangers and mash or whatever. You guys suck at doing the thing that we do, and you pretend like it's alright. It works everywhere, man. Everything's stupid.
Well, that's kind of how Lafayette's house was. At Lafayette's house, he had, Ben Franklin over. He had John and Abigail Adams. He had John and Sarah Jay over. He had Thomas Jefferson. All these people he had over to his house all the time. They'd come over all the time. And the preferred language was English at these, like, dinner parties.
Naturally.
And Lafayette served American food.
Hamburgers, fries.
Pizza, pepperoni pizza.
That's actually how they got to be called
Donuts.
French fries, is by Lafayette serving them in Paris.
He's like, I made you this American thing you guys like. And they're like, but we're in France, so it's French fries, right, guys? And then Benjamin Franklin knocked over a box of toothpicks and was like, hey, Jefferson, how many toothpicks on the ground? And he was like, 347. Like, this guy's amazing.
Thomas Jefferson is autistic in this, which actually kind of makes sense.
He mentioned...
A lot of people say he was.
Yeah.
Historians say
certainly
he was.
could have been.
You heavily implied that last episode as well.
Yeah.
And I say keep it up.
Yeah, no eye contact, good with numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah, thin-skinned. He did not like criticism.
Yeah, he's a regular Donald Trump.
Abigail Adams even said, like, it's cool that he, like, serves American food and all, but it kind of be nice to have some French food while I'm in France.
Yeah.
Also, the people he'd invite over are, like, the most liberal-thinking French nobles as well. So they'd come and talk with the Americans, and it was during a time where all of that Enlightenment thinking, especially after the Revolutionary War in America, was really big, and here's, like, an embodiment, a living proof.
It was the new
of
hot
this
shit.
Stuff. Yeah. And so, everyone wanted to come over and talk about Enlightenment ideals and liberté and equalité and fraternité
And
at
the
Lafayette.
sequel. First one was a hit.
Yeah.
What's next?
Yeah. Well, it's going to be a hit.
Yeah.
Just, I don't know if it's going to be in the right way. And Lafayette spent lavishly. Like, people were like, he was running out of money because of this, this, and this. It's like, no, motherfucker spent a lot of money.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even his accountant was like, hey, when your kids inherit your money, it's good that you have money to give to your children after you die. You know, so
Also-
don't spend all of it.
I stole 100 million livres from you, and I spent it on drugs and whores. And he's like, don't spend it all on one whore.
Jesus.
And he's like, I stole it from you. He's like, no, I know, you can have it. It's
I don't
cool.
give a fuck.
I don't think you understand how rich I am.
I want to die in
would-
debt.
He would ruin some carriages, like the axles of carriages, because he would race them down the street.
I thought you just for fun.
Yeah, just for fun, he would do
He
that.
lived his life 1/4 meter at a time.
Nice.
Nice.
And while Thomas Jefferson was minister to France, Lafayette worked with him on negotiating trade deals to decrease America's debt to France.
Is this
So-
where they met? In France?
No, actually, sorry, I forgot to meet. They met in Virginia before the Battle of Yorktown.
Ah,
That's the first time they met.
like right before?
Pretty much, because they were, like him and John Hancock, they were evacuating
Yeah.
out of that area because that's where Cornwallis was
Yeah.
raiding, you know.
I know. You listen to the episodes.
Yeah, that's where he met him.
Previously
And
on
they became-
HistoryBoiz.
Oh,
They
yeah.
became lifelong friends after that.
It's like, do it like a Dragon Ball Z opening. Goku does push-ups in a gravity chamber. The whole episode.
Just change Goku with Lafayette. It's the same thing.
Yeah. Lafayette did push-ups in a gravity chamber.
Yeah.
Well, he flew through space, trying to get to Namek.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, France. Sorry.
After the revolution, the United States could now trade with other countries, not just Great Britain. So they wanted to work out a sweet deal with France because France bankrolled the whole thing and sent a shit ton of its army down to help. So they were like, okay, sweet deals with France. And Thomas Jefferson and Lafayette kind of took care of all of that with the king. It was a good point in Lafayette's life. You know, pretty much everybody loved and respected him. He was doing all these things to make his country better and to help the cause of liberty and all this stuff. Very proud moment for him.
Cool.
Everyone would stand around and watch him do, like, he could do, like, 7 pull-ups.
Yeah.
And he didn't do those, like, half pull-ups where you're, like, still kind of doing a pull-up and
Or
then you
like
do another
swinging
one.
your legs.
Yeah, no.
Right.
He went from, like, a dead hang, 7 pull-ups, and all those revolutionary minds were around him cheering him on.
Yeah. He could do a somersault.
He was like,
Kinda.
dude, wow.
He went to doing like a few pull-ups to sort of a somersault.
Well, he was like, I could do a back handspring. Never mind, I could do a round off. I'll just do a somersault.
And that's how he fractured his wrist.
Yeah. Weirdly specific, Cherry.
Adrienne gave birth to a daughter
Nice.
who was named, and now this is at Thomas Jefferson's suggestion, he named his daughter Marie Antoinette Vigennet.
Yeah.
So that's after the Queen of France and Virginia, where George Washington was born.
Right.
It's a meeting of ideas.
Yes. And it's sort of a little microcosm for Lafayette's own beliefs.
His third child was named Batman.
And actually, Ben Franklin kind of made fun of him for doing this.
Yeah, I would.
He actually, what he did is he wrote a letter to Lafayette, but instead of just sending it to him, he had it published in a bunch of newspapers.
Oh, that's how they did it back then.
They did that a lot. He kind of poked fun at him. He goes, "Hey Lafayette, I hope you have 13 children for all 13 colonies." And he goes, "But, I feel sorry, for Massachusetts and Connecticut because those are harsh names even for a boy."
I think
Oh
that
my
It's
god.
pretty great.
rich people always had Twitter.
Right? Yeah.
It just used to be newspapers.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like Alexander Hamilton just would have he had the New York Post and it would just be like front page article. Go fuck yourself, Burr.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Aaron Burr is an asshole.
It's the reason why I have my
Oh, I thought we were
zine.
talking about Bill Burr.
Yeah.
Also him. No. I'm kidding. Lafayette joined a French abolitionist club called the Society of the Friends of the Blacks
Ah,
in this day.
very progressive.
Of
For the
his
time,
day,
it probably
of his
was,
day,
yeah.
it really was. Of his day, it really was. It advocated for the end of the slave trade and equal rights for freed slaves.
Not.
Notice how I said that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's the delineation. Always
It's
keep
better
that in mind.
than nothing, I guess.
Right. During his lifelong correspondence with George Washington, whom he considered a father figure by this point, and Washington considered him a son, Washington didn't have any children. So he really considered Lafayette as his son. So anytime anyone tries to tell you, I'm descended from George Washington, they're full of shit.
They're liars.
Because nobody's descended from George Washington.
Nobody wanted to fuck that guy. Have you seen him?
Wooden teeth.
He was huge.
He looked like your daughter's most abused doll.
Yeah.
He was also smooth like a Ken doll.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's why there's no heirs.
Like from Dogma.
Just like Dogma.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
he was an angel.
Grape shot's a bitch.
But during this correspondence he had with George Washington, he would talk to him about how he should free his slaves. And Washington was always just like,
Pass.
yeah, and
You French guys are so funny. You guys have the best sense of humor.
yeah, well, and Lafayette had a plan to gradually free the slaves.
Mm-hmm.
He told this to Washington over a letter, and Washington said, yeah, next time you're down, we'll have to try that. But they
What a prick.
never fucking...
It's like, what am I going to pay workers?
Yeah,
Fuck you.
he had no intention of doing that. But what Lafayette's plan is that he would, have a plantation where, the violent aspects of slavery were stripped out. He would slowly, gradually free them, and they become like tenant farmers, sort of like sharecroppers.
Okay.
Okay.
Which, again, progressive for his day.
Well, the
Right,
other thing is,
right.
it's like if you can't, freeing the slaves outright at this time period is probably just not going to happen.
Well, the thing is everyone, like even Thomas Jefferson, blamed the British for some reason of forcing slaves upon the American colonies, and no, we can't do anything about it, which is bullshit. Even people of his time was like, that's total bullshit. But
you can't blame everything
Yeah.
on the British.
but the thing is that these plans and plans for gradually emancipating slaves was around for a long time.
Yeah.
All the way up until the Civil War, where the South is like, we don't know how to do it. I don't know how to do it. I can't do it without crushing our economy.
Yeah.
Well,
And it's
would've-
like it's impossible. I just can't release these human beings.
If I pay them, then I'll only be 100 millionaire.
You're like,
Jeff Bezos.
I just don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
they're like, I don't like it any more than you do, but sorry,
it's
the
where
economy.
we're at. I mean, I don't know. They seem pretty happy from what I've heard by people telling me what I need them to tell me.
Yeah.
Lafayette believed in this plan so much that he actually bought a plantation in French Guiana, along with 70 slaves. They're already there. So he did purchase 70 slaves.
He's setting up Jonestown way early.
Yeah. He took away the whip. He took away the crazy long hours. He took away the backbreaking work. In fact, they grew spices there, which were easier than cotton, right?
Yeah.
He who controls
Or-
the spice.
Yeah, Arrakis. But yeah, that's what he's going to do. He's going to eventually free them, right? Now, before he could actually get around to freeing them, history kind of happened. Mm-hmm. So he actually never got around to it.
So they're just there.
They're just there.
Yeah, they would have been slaves there anyway, right?
Well, yeah, and I'll kind of tell you what.
I'm not saying that,
I'll tell you what.
Let
I'll tell you
yeah.
what happens.
me backpedal a little bit.
Yeah,
there.
yeah. I understand what you're trying to say. I'll tell you what happened to them, what their fate was. Because they knew that Lafayette was going to free them at some point. They just didn't know when.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Things transpire.
I guess what I'm saying is it's had he done nothing, they would have been getting whipped and shit.
Yeah.
He didn't really end up freeing them, which he should have. They all should have been free. They should have never been slaves in the first place.
Exactly.
It's
But
like
at least they're.
you
This is my backpedal.
They were still they were still slaves.
Yeah.
Right. And it sucks to be you don't want to be you don't want anyone to be a slave, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But at least it wasn't the best you can say is it wasn't
He did-
as bad.
He made them a little.
Which is fucked
made
up.
the situation a little better for people in
Yeah.
a really shitty situation, but didn't get them out of the shitty situation.
He did the I don't know, the 18th century equivalent of putting a pizza in the oven and then passing out.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Fuck, dude. Actually, writing later about Lafayette, Frederick Douglass called Lafayette a true abolitionist because he was for both emancipation and equal rights. And there were so many people in Frederick Douglass's day that were like, I'm against slavery. I just think it's going to ruin the economy
That sounds
if we
familiar.
don't have slaves.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It
like-
sounds familiar coming from somebody who's rich as fuck and profiteering off of slaves.
Yeah.
You know?
Wasn't that what Donald Trump said when he had that meeting with
With
who?
Frederick
oh,
Douglass.
yeah.
Frederick Douglass?
Yep.
What was that? Like, yeah,
He said- yeah,
made a
like-
comment of him.
He said, like, oh yeah, this is a guy that, you know, he's had some popularity in recent years. And it's like,
Well, it heavily, it seemed to imply that he didn't know that.
He was dead.
Yeah,
He had been dead for
yeah,
over
he
100
said that.
years.
Yeah, he said that he's getting more popular in recent years, and it's like you realize he was like one of the most important American figures of all time, right?
I don't think he fucking knows who that is.
No, not at all.
He's
Anyway.
like, fuck, I got him mixed up with Chris Hemsworth again.
So Lafayette was a lot of things, but he did stick to his principles. The slave trade was a divisive issue back then, and he never backed down from it. He always had the same opinion of it. So at least that can be said.
That it was
for him.
fucked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even though he still owned slaves. Again,
Yeah.
he's like, I was gonna let him go.
Yeah.
Still profited.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So let's not forget that. you
I'm
know.
really into ships and bottles. I don't have a lot of time. So I hired these guys just to put the ships in the bottles, and then I was going to let them go. And then I was going to figure out a way to pay them. But it was after.
But then I got
And-
bored.
Yeah, and I forgot that they were doing it. Now I got 100 ships and bottles. I got like 50 dead slaves, and I got a whole bunch of other problems because I forgot to feed them.
Well, instead of that happening, it was more like events that would come to change the face of all world history happened,
Yeah.
and he was right in the middle of it.
Right,
And
right.
that's how he kind of lost track of it. I'm not making excuses for him. I'm just saying, like, yeah, he was sort of in the middle of this big thing.
It was on his list, but it was a mental list.
Yeah.
Nice.
You gotta write that shit down or you're gonna forget.
In 1784 to 1785, he took a trip back to America and was received with open arms by everyone, everywhere he went.
It was a bit of a coming to America, too.
Yes.
Soon in theaters.
Yeah.
Or on streaming. I don't fucking know.
And he visited all 13 states.
He worked his way down the snake, as they like to say. He saw the "Don't tread on me" thing, and he was like, "I'm doing the
I'm going to
hopscotch."
do it.
I'm gonna tread on him. He misunderstood. His English was good,
Not
but not
great.
great.
Right.
He was pretty fluent by
I
this
know,
time.
it was a joke, Cherry. Fucking
okay.
Christ. It's a comedy podcast.
To ruin Chris's fun. So Lafayette, of course, stayed at Mount Vernon with Washington, and they
Mount
hung out
Vernon,
there.
Washington.
Yeah,
It's not far from here.
yeah. Well, he actually spoke in front of the Virginia House of Delegates, and actually urged them to end slavery.
And they were like, and they were like, we're gonna quote our buddy Washington when we say pass.
Yeah, they were all just like ooh, tugging at their
Like,
big old
I
collars.
mean, yeah, we should do that, but the economy is.
I mean, what are they gonna do? Like, then we gotta like let them vote and like give them like regular paying jobs, and it's like a whole can of worms, man.
and then the next thing you know, we gotta let women vote.
Yeah.
Or people who don't own land.
Yeah,
It's a slippery slope at
Yeah.
that point in time.
until everyone.
But like I say, we just dropped the whole thing anyway.
Listen, Laffy, you're a cool guy. You got some pretty radical ideas, but
They're also radical ideas.
You got some radical ideas.
let's put a pin on it right now.
Not owning human beings is a radical idea.
Let's table that plan. Connecticut, Virginia, and Massachusetts actually gave him honorary citizenship
Cool.
as well.
Oh.
He actually liked to brag that he got American citizenship before French citizenship was even thought of, which is kind of crazy.
That is funny.
Which is true.
I am American.
His passport was like Snoop Dogg with a roll of condoms.
It's weird to think as citizenship not being a thing anywhere.
Isn't
Right.
gangsta?
In our day and
right.
age.
Yeah. And actually, exceptions were made, and he became a founding member of the Society of Cincinnati.
Ah.
that we talked about in the
Yeah.
Cincinnatus episode for, veterans of the Revolution.
Lovers of cabbage.
And they were like, no foreigners can be in this club except for Lafayette.
Because he's a cool guy.
Because he's dope
Practically not even a foreigner.
Yeah.
Well, on paper, he's American.
Yeah.
It says it right here.
Meanwhile, in France, King Louis XVI was in a heap of trouble.
Oh, yeah.
France was bankrupt because it supported the American Revolution.
Well, that's a goddamn whoopsie-daisy.
Yeah. And, it's just coming off of some other wars that were very expensive. They had a very draconian tax law. And a lot of people say that, the aristocracy never paid taxes, which they did. But what they did is they paid for tax exemptions. So they paid money into the tax system so they didn't have to pay taxes.
And I would assume that's less money than the taxes.
Yeah.
Glad we're past that now.
Yeah. Oh, dude, there's...
Thanks,
dude.
Bezos.
Yeah.
And all the other billionaires. Actually, it's funny because they're like, we're bankrupt because that money we gave you in the form of ships and soldiers and so forth, can you pay us back? And then Lafayette's like, get rid of slavery. And the U.S. is like, dude, we owe you guys so much money. Come on, man. You're putting us in a really bad position right now.
We need more slaves, if anything.
Jeez.
I didn't say it was
Well, that's
a good
the way
thing.
they went with it. Right. So,
We better call Dutch Hulk.
Jesus.
Another thing the Dutch were known for.
Yeah, the Dutch slave trade. Precisely. Led by Dutch Hulk.
Yeah, it's tulips, it's marijuana, it's coffee, and slave trade.
Yeah.
Hulk.
But a nice
oppress.
red light district.
Yeah.
I've been there.
Now, their tax system, of course, heavily favored the rich, because they were the only ones that were able to pay for
they're
these tax exemptions.
Making the rules.
Exactly.
Right.
And this is sort of a reoccurring theme in France, especially at this time, where they're like, hey, can we do, tax reformation? Can we fix this? And they're like, no.
If the Reformation means more taxes for you guys, because we're in a bit of a pickle right now.
They're like,
I got all these gold rooms and gold toilets. I don't.
this shit doesn't come free.
No.
So
It's
you
not
guys
free.
got to work harder.
Have you seen the parties we're throwing?
Yeah. And the general sense at King Louis's court is that he was a weak king. And the evidence of this was sort of piling up day by day because he was a king that didn't have super strong plans or anything. He was one of those leaders, and I'm not pointing any fingers, but he's one of those leaders that the last person to speak to him is the person he would go with whatever they said.
Yeah.
So
Right.
That's funny.
hey, we need to do this, and he'd be like, yeah,
We do
Okay.
need to do
and then he would waffle on it later. You know what I mean? That's a mark of a shit leader.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
I heard about a guy doing that recently, but anyway, continue.
I'm not pointing fingers.
real people pleaser.
Anyway,
Tiny hands.
yeah. Thomas Jefferson once said that if France didn't have a queen, they wouldn't have a revolution. That's bullshit, first off. The king and queen may have been totally out of touch with their people, but they weren't actively trying to hurt them, as a lot of the French revolutionaries thought they were. You know what I mean? They were just so clueless that they had no idea.
They were doing what they do.
They were
Right.
doing exactly what they do, and guess what? What they do is some bullshit, you know? So that's all that people were realizing.
I mean, Thomas Jefferson also said all men are created equal and owned human beings.
Yeah.
So
Well, it's the British that forced that on us.
he's like, I don't want to own human beings any more than you don't want me owning human
Well,
beings.
he-
But
he-
how am I going to pay for my lavish estate?
Yeah.
Monticello needs at least a dozen more wings.
And let's not even get started about Aquacello.
Under the sea.
Yeah. He's got big old domes and stuff
Yeah.
under the sea.
It's like Sea Lab.
Yeah. Or the one underwater society in the Star Wars prequels.
The
Oda Gunga.
Oh, yes.
Dagung.
Oda Gunga. Okay, let's just
Sounds like
that breaks
cut
the
one of those
stereotype.
out. Yeah.
Which sounds like Oda Benga. You guys know who Oda Benga was? Story for a different day. Moving on.
Was it the richest man in Africa?
No. Far from it.
Okay.
Kind of the opposite.
Poorest man in Africa? That's
Sort
kind
of.
of hard to judge that one.
He was a pygmy that was brought to America to live in the Brooklyn Zoo.
Wow.
Yeah. That's when we had human exhibits at the zoos.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Jesus fucking Christ.
yeah.
Brought to you by P.T. Barnum.
Close. Furthermore, the much anticipated marriage of the king and queen turned out to be an awkward disaster. When King Louis was first taking the throne, he was betrothed to Marie Antoinette, who was an Austrian, I think, daughter of a duchess or princess or something like that.
They're
Anyway,
all related.
Yeah, they're all
Right.
related. Pretty nebulous. She was like the most beautiful, like, noble in Europe, really, at the time. And
Considering how inbred they were, that's probably
yeah,
probably true.
the thing was it was sort of a diplomatic marriage. Relations with the Austrians had always been sort of rocky, and there was this weird tradition with the court after a wedding, a royal wedding, where they would go to the royal bedchamber and they were expected to consummate the marriage. Because the number one thing on your priority list as a new
Heir.
king is to
Yeah.
get a new heir.
Right.
Hopefully a male heir. What they would do is they would go to the bedchambers, consummate the marriage, and then pull back the curtains. And the whole court's there like,
Cream pie!
Jesus.
Fuck.
Jesus. But when they did this with Louis and Marie Antoinette, the awkward couple was just sort of there. And they were like, yeah, it didn't happen.
Couldn't get it up with all you guys watching.
Well,
it was a sad handy. Just mashing it.
Oh, dude.
They're like, it's super hard to fuck when all I can smell is popcorn, you guys. So if you're not gonna
I just want some of that popcorn.
It was a bad omen for the courtiers. You know, like, oh, great, the reign's going to be fucking terrible now. And actually, Marie Antoinette's mother said that if someone as beautiful as her daughter couldn't get him going, you know, I don't know what can.
it's probably gay.
Do you guys want to know what it was?
Yes.
So Louis had a condition,
ED.
no, that made it painful for him to get an erection.
Oh, and any.
Do you know what this? Condition was?
Syphilis.
No,
Bonitis.
no,
Bonitis.
no.
Said
Said that already.
an any.
Innie?
He didn't have an Audi, he had an innie.
He had an any.
Sort of close. No, he had phimosis, which, if you remember back to our Garfield episode, Charles Guiteau had the same weird dick.
Oh, weird dick.
Yeah, so basically the foreskin is wrapped too tight on the penis, and it makes it painful. Makes your dick bow inside of the foreskin.
So bonitis.
And actually circumcision, and there's a very, there's a bunch of pretty uninvasive surgeries to fix this, but Louis was terrified of getting it done, because they gotta,
You gotta
cut
chop
it.
his dick.
He's
They
like,
gotta
it's
cut
way
off
better
skin.
to be in extreme pain every time I get an erection than go anywhere near the knife.
Yeah.
Which is actually probably not a bad idea, because at that point in time, it's like, so the surgery was a success, but you're going to die of infection.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny that you bring that up, because it wasn't the fear. He wasn't fearful of the knife. He was more afraid of being around a Jewish man.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, is there not a large Jewish population in France?
Mainly Catholic.
Yeah.
Mainly Catholic. Certain circumcision was definitely a total cure for this.
Yeah.
He just didn't want to
It's
do
a pretty simple one.
it. Yeah.
I circumcised my son immediately, first chance I got, because I knew he was going to have a weird Louis dick. And I was
Charles
like,
Guiteau dick.
yeah. And also, Andrew said he wouldn't watch any of the porn that he was in when he was an adult. So
Jesus.
I was just thinking, I was like, he knew if he had a bris, then he'd probably have to have like
a moil.
yeah,
Yep.
he needed a moil.
You got to hire a moil.
I was gonna say
can't have a bris
bar
without brisket,
mitzvah,
though.
Oh,
and down the road, and then he'd be a man, and then he could make love to a woman.
yes.
Didn't want to go down that road.
No.
He didn't want to remember all that Hebrew.
You didn't want to practice the
It's like, if
Torah.
I don't fucking memorize this, I'm never going to get
And people are like,
to a woman.
Oh my god.
Jesus
if
Christ,
I don't
you guys.
memorize all this Hebrew, I'll never make love to a woman.
Yeah, we were way off.
King
track.
Louis.
King Louis. The fucking king of a Catholic country.
He was a little mistaken, sure.
Very mistaken. Eventually, the king and queen did produce children, although this caused everyone in France to go, yeah, I bet you she's sleeping around.
Yeah.
With every Tom, Dick, and Harry that's in the court.
And
Every
Dick.
Dick, and Dick,
Yeah. Kid
Dick,
comes out
Richard,
looking like
and-
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Right? He's also Austrian.
That's where my mind went.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Also,
Yeah.
his son looks like him, apparently. From The Maid.
Yeah.
and is a bodybuilder with the exact same face.
Yeah. Like, people are like, huh, the Maid's son looks awful familiar.
There was also rumor that Lafayette himself got in the mix.
Oh.
Yep.
Oh,
Not true.
And
but
that's where the political cartoons come into play.
yeah, there was definitely anyone that spent a little too much time at court, the Comte du Trois, all these people were all accused of sleeping around with Marie Antoinette.
Yep. And they all did, every one of them.
Probably not. I kind of weirdly defend Marie Antoinette.
I think
she's oblivious to all this stuff. That's kind of her worst mistake she ever had.
Yeah,
is
that's a
that
good
she
point.
was just
I
oblivious.
wasn't trying to make her look bad. I was like, you do you, sister. Like, women doing it for themselves, you know what I'm saying?
Chris is sex positive
Yeah.
towards the 18th
aristocracy.
century French aristocracy
Yeah.
specifically, but modern
And
day
only.
women not so much. It's actually really jarring hearing some of his views on how he feels about women.
Yeah.
Join us on our Discord when you sign up on Patreon so that you can hear all of Chris's thoughts and feelings.
Wild revelations.
Yeah, and on our Patreon on the new $100 level, you have HistoryBoiz Red, and that's Red State Red, and you get to hear some of Chris's views about women and people of color, and it's pretty.
Really pulling a full Alex Jones.
Yeah, it's but you can also
shaking.
buy Chris's. It's a powdered slop. You add water to. It's great for the apocalypse, and he's selling it by the bucket. It's like a 5 pound. It's a 5 pound bucket, and it tastes vaguely like food
Yeah.
mixed with powdered cement mix, and
Yeah.
I don't know. If
But
you
it'll
dri-
get you rock hard.
well, yeah, that's
super
mostly the
high.
powdered cement that's in the mix. It'll get
It's like
your
Soylent.
yeah. It really stays with you.
Sticks to your ribs.
Yeah, it literally sticks to your ribs. It really stays with you for a long time.
Yeah.
And strange, I don't know about anyone else, but it gave me nightmares, like worst nightmares that I've ever had.
That's one of the first symptoms.
Yeah,
Horrid nightmares.
Take it enough, you get day nightmares.
yeah.
Daymares.
Daymares.
You get the symptoms
It's
of
like-
a rug burn on your elbows and knees without
It's
ever
like
doing anything
daytime
different.
sleep paralysis.
Oh my god.
Okay, moving on. So not knowing what to do about the country's financial crisis, in late 1786, Louis made a fateful decision. He called the Assembly of Notables for the first time in nearly 200 years. He only did this in dire situations.
Yeah.
Now the Assembly of Notables was a body of high-ranking nobles and clergy that were summoned, in this case, to basically look at the country's books and be like, all right, how much trouble are we in? And the new finance ministers, they had 3 of them. Jacques Necker was the one that kind of took center stage. He was like, here all of it is, we're fucked. And like the king was mad, he showed everything.
Yeah.
He wasn't supposed to show everything. Wasn't supposed to tell everybody exactly how fucked they were, but he did. And that was like the king was like, fuck.
Based off my findings, we're fucked.
When you're super fucked, you gotta call the 5 other dudes who know math because education's expensive. So only the aristocracy or people of high standing had it. You get them in a room and you go, okay, I need you to look at the books and find a way to cook them because I'm in a lot of trouble, guys. I'm in a lot of trouble.
Sort of. Only he was like, I think the king probably wanted to cook the books or something.
Yeah.
But like he was like, no, we gotta fix this financial situation. We actually have to fix it. And they were like, oh dear lord, we are totally fucked. And like the king's like, god damn it.
Why did
Like-
we decide to host the Olympics?
Lafayette was among the Assembly of Notables. He was standing up there being like, hey, this is not a representation of France. It's just the rich people that are looking at this. And every time we send any kind of tax reform plans to the Parlement, it always gets struck down. Why? Because you're asking these notables, these really rich nobles to pay taxes. Yeah. And they're not going to vote to pay taxes. Why would you vote to pay more taxes? It was just... It was a dead end. Yeah.
The country's totally fucked and bankrupt, and, the rich are super fucking rich, and they're like, well, I'd rather just,
I'd rather just keep
doing,
rich.
Yeah, I'd rather just keep doing what I'm doing.
Can't you just cook the books?
Yeah.
That doesn't make resources come out of nowhere.
Yeah, sounds familiar, doesn't it?
Yeah. Can't you just charge poor people more? I've seen fat poor people, so they're getting enough.
Well, and
they live in their car.
They also had, internal tariffs.
They can afford a car.
Yeah. They can afford a Datsun to live in. Yeah. They're fine.
They also have an iPhone.
Yeah.
They had internal tariffs, too. Inside the country, if you were, taking something somewhere, every time you crossed the little border between this place and that place, there was tariffs. There was all sorts of stuff. And it just crippled the whole economy. And a lot of this has to do with their sort of outdated feudalism that still existed in France. So what these people were arguing is that we have to basically call for a larger representation of France to figure this out. There's no way. This is a dead end. Every time we ask the Parlement to do anything, they won't. In fact, most of the Assembly of Notables wanted to do almost anything except for pay taxes. So, what the king decided to do, another fateful decision, was call the Estates General. Now, France is made up of, at this time, of 3 estates. So the first estate is the clergy.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's all of, your bishops and everything like that.
Churchy guys.
Churchy guys. And they don't pay any taxes. And they get all of these great tax benefits as well. They make a lot of money.
That sounds like a money pit.
It is. Right. Only they make a lot of money off of it. They profiteer. Hardcore. And then you have the second estate, which is what Lafayette belonged to. And that's your nobles, your aristocracy. And then you have the third estate, which was called the commons, which is everyone else. Mm-hmm. The third estate, should be pretty obvious, is most of the people in France.
Well, then, the 99%.
Well, then you should increase the taxes on them, because there's most of them.
Right, exactly. The backbone of the economy, right?
Yeah. There aren't that many, nobles. Why tax them?
There's 100 nobles, and they have 99% of all the wealth.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's not a lot of them, so...
Once again asking is that, in my view, I think... Anyway,
they also had all the ceremonial swords.
You guys see the bit.
Yep. Yeah. The nobles had all the ceremonial swords.
And they probably did.
That's actually almost certainly true.
Yeah.
Commoners have no need for ceremony.
Yeah.
No, they don't need the pomp and circumstance.
You definitely don't want them
with
just
sharp
objects.
They just want food.
Yeah.
Because France is starving at this time. There's actually a grain shortage, and there's widespread famine. People are starving in the streets of Paris.
Their children are fucking sober as a priest. What is going on? Their children need wine.
Yeah.
What did they do to deserve this sober existence?
Yeah. So
raw dog in reality.
So considering the king, but since the king was actually asking for their input, the third estate came loaded with they had a list of grievances.
They had some input.
And they're like, "Oh, first time the king's ever asked me what my fucking thoughts are. Here's my thoughts."
They were like, King's like, "Oh, here we go."
Yeah.
Oh, and that's how it was too, because they took up a bunch of time just. This is fucked. This whole thing is fucked. Because every time we vote on anything, you guys always outvote us because we have the same representation as you do, even though we outnumber you.
There's a part in Hamilton when Burr and Hamilton are arguing, and he goes, here's a list of 30 years of disagreements.
Yeah.
An itemized list of 30 years of disagreements, and Aaron Burr goes, sweet Jesus.
Well, I like that it's like...
This is 200 years of grievances.
And more than one dude.
Yeah. Most of France.
Your dogs wear, fucking imported silk. I'm wearing a burlap sack. I feel like there's a middle ground there.
You can afford a burlap sack.
Yeah.
I think you're doing fine.
Looks warm to me. I wouldn't wear it, but it looks warm. It looks warmish.
Looks warm. Looks fine.
Yeah.
If you can afford a burlap sack, you can afford to get back to work.
Yeah.
Maybe get a job. You ever think of that?
Like the aristocracy, who never works for anything, right?
Yeah.
Well, they don't need to because they're
They have
rich.
to. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
They're
they-
job creators.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're job creators. I really don't think they should be taxed because if they are, they're all gonna move to Texas. And in addition to that, I mean, like, I don't know, man. Like, they get up at 8 a.m., they make 3 decisions a day, and then they take the day off, and they're the richest people on the planet.
Yeah.
They're clearly the hardest working.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
It's
right.
a living.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't work an 8-hour day.
I don't work.
Or a
at it.
14-hour day in a warehouse owned by the person who makes 3 decisions a day.
Yeah.
And is the
exactly.
richest man on the planet.
Yeah,
I'm talking about King Louis.
yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
From Jungle Book.
I was going to say that from Jungle Book.
Now Lafayette, he was elected as well to the Estates General among his second estate, and he was actually one of the very few liberal voices among the second estate, saying like, hey, we need to vote by head instead of voting the way we have been, because this is not liberty.
It's a collision course.
Yeah, well, like, that's most of France that we just keep out voting. Like,
Yeah.
that's not fair. You know what I mean? He's just stating the obvious.
It's like, hey, we know you fought for liberty, but we didn't expect you to do that here.
Yeah, right.
Right.
I regret getting you that big ass house.
Yeah, so the Third Estate was like, yay, Lafayette. And,
He's a man of the people.
yeah, everyone else was basically like, fuck you, dude.
Boo,
You're a
Lafayette.
traitor to your class, you know? And,
Oh, a class trader.
yeah, I mean, they met for months, you know what I mean? And one thing that happened is because they couldn't agree on to, like, change voting structure, they couldn't agree on any, like, base level stuff before they even got to the issue of taxes or anything like that. Because the Third Estate's like, we got some shit to talk about, you know? And they had to talk about all this other stuff now, other than what brought them here. And it was
Right.
just, they were just spiraling down this toilet bowl into complete fucking madness.
Meanwhile, Lafayette's like, guys, we can go round and around all day, but they're building guillotines outside. And,
Not quite yet.
Not quite yet.
No.
But like he can read the tea leaves.
And
Like,
in a way, there's a lot of unforeseen things that are going to happen. But in a way, he's like, this is going to be upended.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If we don't do something and do it fast.
Laffy, again, you're coming up with these super radical ideas.
Yeah.
Calm down.
stay
But,
the
like,
course.
Can't you just do some more of those radical kick flips on your skateboard?
Yeah.
Right?
You're a regular skater boy.
Yeah.
I think we discussed that last
Yeah.
episode.
While people in Paris were starving in the streets and killing each other over scraps of bread, you know, the king and queen are throwing lavish parties with tables full of food and like all this stuff, you know. Rumors would circulate that they were hoarding.
You got to stimulate
wheat.
the economy. So.
Yeah. That's a trickle down.
It'll
Big
trickle.
lavish parties being like, France is broke. Whee!
Well, this is what we always do.
Yeah.
You know, like that's how it kind of
Clearly,
works.
they aren't partying hard enough.
Yeah, right.
Trickle down partying.
Now that is a concept I can get behind.
Oh, yeah.
Led by Andrew W.K.
It's like if we party real hard, then it'll trickle down to the lower class, and then they'll party pretty hard, and then all the way down to homeless people. They're drunk in an alley. They're already partying. You see, it's already working.
Yeah. Yeah. You can smoke refries. You're not better than that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's still like half a cigarette left.
The
Yeah.
poor people are drinking the almost empty beer with the cigarette butts in it.
Oh, yeah.
That's pretty much what that is.
And even that last bit of beer, like when it's like, you know, got about a centimeter left, it's fucking gross.
God,
It's
it's
so-
it.
legacy
Yeah.
beer,
the
man.
ass of the beer. That's what I call it.
Yeah, the ass
Yeah.
end of the beer. Now Lafayette, him and a newly formed committee. Now, when we do talk about the French Revolution as a whole, because again, I'm not going to talk about the whole French Revolution. If you do, I've had people ask for this, but if you do want to hear about the French Revolution, I'm telling you right now, it's going to be at least 4 parts. It's a giant fucking story to tell. It's going to be at least 4 parts. If you want to hear it, email us at historyboispodcast@gmail.com and tell me if you want to hear
Yeah.
it or not. And I'll only do it if I get enough emails,
And
honestly.
if you really want to know about it,
be a doozy.
if you
It's
want to
gonna
know
be
about it,
easy.
you can listen to Mike Duncan's Revolutions.
There's also that, which is...
But he doesn't tell jokes.
No, he doesn't.
So, though he calls people, like, and then he will
He's
say
kinda
stuff.
funny.
He
He's
is
kinda
kind of funny
funny.
because he'll be like, and then he comes up to me and he's like, dude, what the fuck? He says dude a lot.
No. So yeah, Lafayette was a member of the committee of 30, which advocated for voting by head and to represent all the three estates equally. And even though many of his estate didn't get on board, members of the clergy were willing to get on board with it. So they declared themselves the National Assembly, rather than the Estates General. Same thing, but it's a whole different thing. They're taking on more responsibility.
Seems like there's a lot of pageantry here.
So much. And Lafayette was a big fan of that. Know that. Big fan of symbols and pageantry.
He's like, the court stuff, not a huge fan of. This new pageantry, I can get behind.
He likes the Enlightenment pageantry.
Yeah, he's like,
Now, where's my sash?
once I roundhouse kick this bell that's hanging from the ceiling, we can get started.
Pretty much.
You know this is weird as shit, right?
So in response, the conservatives of the group decided to lock out the Third Estate and Lafayette from the proceedings.
It's like when they shut down the government because they're not getting what they want.
Well, kind of. It'd be like locking out one group and then just carrying on.
Yeah.
And being like, we're getting stuff done, even though they're just speaking in an echo chamber.
It's like the Democrats right now.
Well, if
About fucking time,
the
frankly.
Democrats were to lock out the Republicans, or the Republicans locked out the Democrats, it would be a lot like... not the same, but it would be similar.
It's like all the social media services silencing conservative voices, and then the Democrats just doing a bunch of executive orders on doing, 4 years of really hard work from like one of the greatest presidents.
Quick rant. Donald Trump signed 220 executive orders in his 4 years.
Jesus fuck. Seriously?
That's not actually that crazy. That's really not that crazy. Barack Obama was 274 or 5, I believe, over the course of 8 years. And I think Bill Clinton was 290 something.
That still sounds like...
I think Bill Clinton was 269 and stopped and was like, nice.
No. Anyway,
nice.
Every president signs a bunch of executive orders. Okay. And if you go back and look through the executive orders and sort of what they mean and how much more power was given to them over time, Ronald Reagan had more than those two presidents put together.
Yeah.
So stop with the executive order bitching.
And
it's not like...
I'm fucking tired of hearing it.
But it's also not like the second they sign an executive order, it's... Nobody can fucking fight it.
No, it can be struck down almost instantly. Because it hasn't been passed by Congress. It's not a law. Anyway, I'm fucking tired of hearing about the executive orders being fucking dictatorial. It's fucking dumb as shit.
I think I'm not normally like these both sides kind of but I do think both sides are only mad about executive orders when the
it
other
doesn't go
side's
their way.
doing it.
Exactly.
And
it's like the deficit.
You gotta cut that out because...
You gotta cut that out.
Dude, all presidents fucking do it. They...
But I'm just saying,
get some history in you and fucking make sense of the world.
I'm saying the way they cut out the Third Estate is certain people getting silenced on Twitter, like Parler getting
no, it's not.
deplatformed.
It's not.
It's exactly.
So locking the Third Estate out was like, oh, you guys want an equal voice? Now you have no voice.
Yeah.
Instead of your shitty voice that you had earlier. And it's like, and so all these people, Lafayette was not among them. He was also locked out, but he was not among them who did this. The people that were locked out got super pissed off and went to the tennis courts and took an oath. They were like, we will never disband until this country has a constitution. And it's called the Tennis Court Oath. Huh. And it's sort of the beginning of the French Revolution.
That's the most country club shit I've ever heard in my entire life. They went to the tennis court right next to the sauna.
They were at Versailles.
Yeah, I know. Well, yeah.
So,
and it's right after 9 holes of golf.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
They're like,
they could have done 18.
I am tense from those 9 holes, and the sauna's right there, but I'm going to stop at the tennis court, have a glass of iced tea, and protest this and make a declaration for all of us. May I have a hot towel while I do this? I'm not the rabble, but I care about them.
And some foie gras.
Yeah, and some foie gras.
Yeah.
Anyway. And honestly, it's just ineptitude from a dog shit leader, is what it is.
Yeah.
And the fact that the system is totally rigged towards the rich aristocracy. Now, the assembly continued to meet, as did the Estates General. They were sort of they went by a lot of different names. I'm not really going to get into that here. The assembly declared the tennis court oath, like the Third Estate, and all of their demands. They declared it illegal. Like the king got up and he was like, what they want to do is illegal, and we can't do that. And it's like,
You're the king.
okay,
Yeah.
it's illegal now, huh?
Yeah. Because I said so, because I'm the king.
So he just made it cool now.
Right.
I don't make the
Exactly.
I don't make the rules. I just...
Yeah, I write them down and enforce them.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, it pissed them off. And honestly, it shoved them further into radicalism, is all it really did. Like what doubling down does.
That's
when you
what it
doubling
does.
when people are mad at something you do, and then you double down on it, it just pisses them off more. You know?
That's how you get killed.
Well, it's how you get a real pissed
Mess
off
around,
populace.
see what happens.
Yeah, exactly. Ooh boy, he was about to see what happens.
Fuck around, find out.
Yeah. So, as tensions were heightening, Lafayette, along with his good buddy, Thomas Jefferson, and a French clergyman, Emmanuel Joseph Saya, I believe is how you pronounce it.
Sawyer.
Saya.
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 Chowder.
Saya. I believe it's
Say it,
Saya.
Frenchie, it's chowder.
He was known as
Simpsons reference.
Yep, there we
he
go.
was known as Abbe Saya. Together, all wrote the first draft of one of the most important documents in all of world history. And that was called the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen.
Ah.
It's what our Constitution and Bill of Rights is based off of.
Huh.
Because Madison was like, "Yeah, I'm working on something too. Mind if I like peek in?"
Yeah.
You know?
Mind if I take some snapshots of that
Yeah.
real
Yeah.
quick?
So understand this though about Lafayette is even though he's insanely enthusiastic about not having a monarch and his Republican Enlightenment ideals in the United States, he was for a constitutional monarchy in France. He didn't think that sort of level of republicanism would work in France.
Yeah.
He thought that an old country like France needed to be sort of let down easy and have a constitutional monarchy, a lot like Great Britain. And even Thomas Jefferson said, if you need inspiration for this, you need to look towards Great Britain, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
You know,
Right, yeah.
they just fought a war, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what they said.
They're like, it's cool. As soon as the queen dies, the royal family just dissolves, and then it's just parliament, and we're just going to let them down easy. Let them think that they're doing their thing. She gets to wave, do that weird hand wave where it's like kind of like a side to side, not so much a back and forth.
Beauty queen.
Yeah, and then like 100 years later, they're like, she's still fucking alive. All of her kids are dead, and her kids' are dead, and like she's still fucking alive. I don't get it. I don't get what is she eating. Anyway,
Dude, it's obvious that it's the blood of Di.
well, yeah,
Yeah.
Oh, a Bathory.
Yeah. Regular Bathory.
yeah.
Go listen to the spooky seasons.
Also spotted dick.
Because her husband has a spotted penis.
Yeah, it's from the decisions that he made earlier in his life. Fuck
He's,
the Dalmatian, and it got weird.
He's an exceptional foreskin.
It's too tight. He has
Almost
tight
a royal foreskin. Far above average.
The Declaration for the Rights of Man and of the Citizen was Enlightenment thinking to the hilt. It called for universal equality, liberty, property, security, and the resistance to oppression.
Oh.
Even Thomas Jefferson was like, property, huh? Everyone has the right to property, huh?
Tall order.
Okay. That's why it's not included in ours.
Yeah.
Honestly. Because that's like,
He's like, ugh.
everyone has a right to property, huh?
He's like, I have right to property.
Yeah.
I'm Thomas Jefferson.
Not everyone has the right to property.
Fuck them.
I pulled myself up from
Next,
the
you're going to say
bootstraps.
everyone can vote.
Right.
Yeah, well, property's like something like that that physically exists. It's not like fucking wishes and fucking gumdrop fucking
Yeah, like they can,
rainbows.
they can have the wishes they want.
They can talk about equality. They can talk about,
Liberty,
whatever's in that
security,
document.
and
I can't remember.
resistance to
But like,
oppression.
property is a physical thing. That's like promising everyone $100. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Promising
Or
everyone...
$2,000.
once you're promising people physical shit that's finite, that exists,
Yeah.
that's where things get
like
dicey.
like a brand new soda machine in the lunchroom.
Oh, one of those cool ones that's like the Coca-Cola one.
The
where
flavor
Yeah,
machine.
the flavor machine.
Right.
Ooh.
You make any kind of Coke
Yeah,
you want.
These things, liberty, property, security, and resistance to oppression, these are called natural and imperceptible rights of man. right? These are rights you couldn't take away,
Yeah.
that everyone just had. Inalienable, right? He also was for a meritocracy versus the heretical aristocracy. He also advocated in this document an end to feudalism and the aristocratic tax exemptions.
Oh, we should get those here.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's literally burning down the house while he's still inside.
Yeah, kind of.
This is fine.
freedom of speech and of the press. He had definitions of liberty, like liberty does no harm to anybody, liberty only frees people. He said that ending arbitrary arrests and imprisonments needed to end, like only if you violated the law can you be arrested or go to jail.
Like how that was just...
Yeah.
Crazy.
What?
Also because France was predominantly a Catholic country, he wanted religious freedom, especially for Protestants, because a lot of his friends back in America were Protestant. And he was like, come on, our country's got to be nice to my friends, right?
Yeah.
So he called for that as well.
Mm-hmm.
He also talked about that there was this idea of the nation would have to bend to the general will. And general will, like, this is something that happens all the fucking time, especially in Enlightenment constitutions and, like, governing documents, is that they'll say something that seems obvious to them and seems totally clear, but it's like, what the fuck is the general will, right? Like, what is that? Like, if you read through our Constitution, it's riddled with stuff like this. This is why people, like, totally...
Can argue it.
They can argue it. They get law degrees in just constitutional law because it's so open-ended, right?
Yeah.
So the general will, this would come back to bite France in the dick after this, because...
Also, they're pussies.
Yeah, because anyone can claim to be acting on behalf of the general will of the people, right? And if you're able to somehow draw a line between yourself acting on behalf of the general will of the people, and someone else that you point the finger at and say they are not acting on behalf of the general will of the people.
How do you argue that?
Exactly. So then, if you get people riled up enough, all of a sudden you're cutting off people's heads. Mm-hmm. Right?
Pretty fun.
So yeah, general will really came back to bite him. Mm-hmm. Now, it'd be some time, however, before this whole declaration was amended several times and then ratified. I say ratified loosely, because it was sort of ratified and then ignored and then not ratified. A whole thing went. This thing had a life of its own, right?
It's a living document.
Exactly. However...
Like the Necronomicon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
It'll bite you.
Action.
Yeah, it'll get you.
Did I already drink my beer?
I mean, you can
Can I go pee-pee?
I gotta pee so bad. I was waiting for you to get to...
Go.
Is it a rebellion?
However, though, 3 days after Lafayette published the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen, something happened that overshadowed it. Totally. And that was the fall of the Bastille.
Oh, no.
Storming of the Bastille.
Bastille.
Yeah.
It's the most famous prison.
Pretty much. Now, one story, probably
It's like
apocryphal.
Azkaban.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. It's the French Azkaban. It's an
Is the
oubliette.
Bastille and... Yeah, okay, thank you! Because I
Yeah.
think I brought up an oubliette in another
you did,
episode, and
you
you're
did.
like, this isn't quite an oubliette.
Yeah.
And you're like, an
The
oubliette's
Bastille.
like the Bastille.
Yeah.
And then I forgot, and then when you brought it up, I was like, I'm going to get there, and you beat me. God
Yeah,
damn it.
It was an oubliette. One story, probably apocryphal. When the king found out about this, he was reading to a group of kindergartners, and somebody whispered in his ear. No, I'm kidding. When he found out about this, they were like, they're storming the Bastille, and the king said, "Is it a rebellion?" And the person telling him this said, "No, sire, it's a revolution."
Oh, no.
Meanwhile, at the Bastille, they're like, Free Chicken Tuesday!
The Bastille actually had 7 prisoners in it. That's all it really had at that point. There was a forger. There was an old man in there that tried to assassinate Louis XV. There was an Irishman that his parents locked him up in there because he believed himself to be Julius Caesar. He was a madman.
Oh, it's like it's like when somebody thinks they're Napoleon.
Yeah, who we're going to see in this story, by the way.
Bender?
There was actually Marquis de Sade.
Was in the Bastille?
10 days before the fall of the Bastille, he was transferred to a different prison.
No shit.
Yeah, there's a lot of conspiratorial-minded people
Ships
that think
passing
that
in the
was like a thing. So I'm not really going to go into all the details about the storming of the Bastille because I'm going to save that for an eventual French Revolution series.
Okay.
What I will say is after the storming of the Bastille was successful for the mobs of Paris, they looked around at all these guys that now had a bunch of guns. And they were like, now we have an army. We have an army, and we've basically taken Paris for ourselves. And we got this army with a bunch of dudes with guns and shit. Who's gonna lead our new army?
Gee, I wonder.
Lafayette?
Bruce Campbell.
Well, the
Army of Darkness.
At this point, the friend of the people and the only military man that seems to be a friend of the people, Marquis de Lafayette.
Lafayette? Sorry.
So he became like the commander, the general of the newly minted National Guard. What happened was like Louis surrounded the city with troops. Mm-hmm. Let's call them federal troops.
Loyalists.
Federales.
They demanded basically take away your troops. Louis decided, probably rightly, that he was going to visit Paris and try to kind of smooth things over. When he got there, because they had elected a new mayor, they'd really taken Paris away from Louis, and he was like, fuck. So he's
got a sash and everything.
It's funny.
Well, and Lafayette actually designed their uniforms and paid for new uniforms.
Reminds me of
stuff.
DC.
They're looking all snappy.
The mayor of DC hated Donald Trump.
Bailly, I forget his first name, but Bailly was the new mayor of
Darren.
Paris. Yeah, Darren. Yeah. Chaz Bailly.
Darren. Darren's going away for a long time.
He capitulated to their demands, and he removed his royal regiments surrounding the city, came back to Paris. When he did come to Paris, he was very on edge, because the whole city is not cool with him at this point.
Wants to kill his ass. They wish a motherfucker would.
Yeah. So they pinned a red and blue cockade on him, which is the colors of Paris. Mm-hmm. And he was going to appear to his people in solidarity wearing this cockade. He didn't really want to wear it. He was there wearing it.
And it was the bulletproof vest at the time.
Sort of. Lafayette appeared on the balcony with him and took some red ribbon, or white ribbon. It's sort of unclear exactly how this went down, but the crux of it is that Lafayette took some white ribbon and tied it with the red and blue cockade. And the white symbolized the Bourbon monarchy and the Ancien regime. So it was sort of the symbol of the royal power along with the symbols of the Parisian city. So it came to sort of represent, I'm the king, I'm with you.
Unity.
Sort of unity, solidarity, sort of a thing. And everybody was... that placated everyone for now. Everyone's like, yay. They even said, long live the king, and stuff like that.
Good job with the ribbon there, Your
Exactly.
Highness.
Yeah, again... pomp and circumstance and symbols, they were
Saves
very
the
important.
day.
Right. Exactly. Very important. And Lafayette would learn that sort of thing would only get him so far.
This is how we got Fashion Week.
This is how we get the French tricolor flag. Lafayette pretty much invented that in this moment.
And also Pittsburgh Fashion Week.
Yeah, it's trash bags. I don't know. I'm kidding.
Fuck you, Pittsburgh.
Kidding.
You got
I love
right
you, Pittsburgh. I have a friend that lives in Pittsburgh. Very dear friend of mine. I hope he's listening. Hey, Logan.
What are they famous for?
Steel.
Oh, okay.
Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah.
Union jobs.
The old Pittsburgh Union job.
The king and his entourage returned to Versailles. Now, the declaration was ratified and then rejected by the king, if you can believe that. Much to everyone's chagrin. It was rumored, this sort of kicked off a lot of things. Some of this was true, but here's what the rumor was, is that the king and the queen never wanted the declaration and had no intention of signing the declaration, and that they were throwing these lavish parties as the people in Paris were starving. Mm-hmm. And this one in particular party that happened after the storming of Bastille and after he was in Paris, they all got really drunk and like ate a bunch of food and took off the tricolor cockades, threw them on the floor and stomped on them and said like, "Death to the tricolor, long live the monarchy," and stuff like that.
That seems a bit far.
Yeah. There's a kernel to truth to it. They were absolutely throwing parties.
Yeah, I'm sure they were throwing parties, but I feel like even they were like, if we did that, we would be like essentially tempting fate.
Yeah, but think about it this way. The king did surround himself with a bunch of sycophants and people that did tell him what he wanted to hear. And
That sounds
long
great.
live the king and all that stuff. He liked hearing that. You know what I mean? So it's not hard to believe. But it's probably, there's some bullshit in there.
So, was like at these parties, was there cake? Is that when Marie Antoinette said the thing?
Okay, let's talk about this. Let's talk about this.
Was Blue Monday playing by New Order in the background?
So let's talk about the
That last part, yeah, but the rest of it didn't.
Let's talk about the let them eat cake thing. You may have heard this before, but Marie Antoinette never said let them eat cake when she heard about the starving Parisians. In fact, that's a very old quote that goes way, way back. Let them eat cake. Goes way, 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 way back. All it's really doing is just sort of describing the aristocratic and royal disconnection between themselves and the normal populace.
Right.
Now, there was one guy, I believe he was a guard at Versailles, like a high-ranking guard at Versailles, that did say, well, if they're starving, they should just eat hay. And that really pissed him off. They actually cut his head off and put it on a pike and stuffed hay in his mouth.
Nice. There we go.
Sounds like he had that coming.
Yeah, they weren't fucking around.
He was the, maybe they shouldn't spend so much money on avocado toast and
iPhones.
at his time.
Cut that guy's head off and shove avocado toast in his mouth.
Yeah, fucking Paul Ryan.
Yeah.
Shove an
Paul Ryan
iPhone
say
in
that?
his fucking mouth.
Yeah.
He's like, maybe if they didn't spend so much money on new iPhones. It's like, oh yeah? So added to this, the king called in the Flanders Regiment to come
Stupid, sexy Flanders.
to come to Versailles. The Flanders Regiment was like their Navy SEALs.
Yeah.
Like these guys were the hardened group of the military.
And
you
even
know?
with a full suit of armor, it was like they were wearing nothing at all.
Look at this one joke.
Yeah, just keep going with it.
Simpsons reference. It's like
Flanders did a lot of shit in that show. Like, but we're referencing the one time. The snowsuit thing that he was wearing.
the time that he challenged all of our sexuality with his perfectly round buttocks.
He definitely challenged Homer's.
All of this stuff, king refusing or at least floundering on signing the Declaration, the Flanders Regiment, the party, the stomping on the tricolor, things like that. The king also fired Jacques Necker, who was the liberal-minded Minister of Finance. And this was a big spit in the face.
I feel like he keeps shooting himself in the foot
Yeah.
over and over.
Over and over and over. He never stops doing that. He fired Necker, and people were like, he fired Necker, and like all of a sudden shit started popping off.
He's like, you know what the problem is? The poor class are not subjugated enough. So if I subjugate and oppress them even worse, they won't have time to rebel.
Yeah. Well, and they even thought about like, all right, capitulate to their demands for now. Then they'll forget about it, and we can do whatever we want later.
Yeah.
You know?
Keep throwing these lavish parties.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Let's
he kept
placate
trying to
them.
sort of do it. Yeah, he kept sort of trying to do that, right? But not actually making actual reform
Lip
happen.
service.
Yeah, lip service.
Have you considered killing all the poor?
Have you considered?
Oh, who are we
killing
going to
them?
tax then?
Yeah, yeah. That reminds me of that Mitchell and Webb sketch.
Oh,
Considered
yeah.
kill the poor. It's like, no, we wouldn't do that. It's like, well, then you haven't thought of everything. I'm not saying kill the poor. I'm just saying you haven't thought of everything.
That's a beautiful sketch.
Yeah.
It's
Anyway,
up there with Are We the Baddies?
are we the baddies? They've got skulls on them. So when all this stuff happened, you know, everyone's hearing about this. Shit's just getting worse in Paris. Everyone is mad about all this stuff, especially a group of women. They were called the fish women. They were working as they're cutting fish all day with big old butcher knives.
I got those meaty fucking
Oh, they were
mitts.
tough women, you know, and they walked around with covered in blood with fucking butcher knives.
Cool.
And
Nice.
they were, like, the most pissed off.
We're going to
And-
be bad guys in Silent Hill 5.
They said that, and it made no sense.
It made no sense.
They
at the
just
time.
wait, like, a couple, like, 300 years.
Don't you mean 4?
Or 4.
It's 1700s,
This
so
is
no.
late 1700s.
Yeah, they didn't know how many sequels there were going to be back then.
The thing is being the head of the National Guard was the worst job fucking possible. Because you had two things. Your National Guardsmen are people that stormed the Bastille.
Yeah.
These are radical thinkers, right? You had them in a way to sort of control Paris, you know, against the will of the king and the aristocracy, and sort of keep the peace there. But also, you're dealing with Lafayette, who still does want a king, so he still wants to protect the king. So he's stuck in the middle here. And he's always sort of been in the middle, but he's really stuck now.
Yeah.
So, like, he orders the National Guard, like, hey, can you, like, tell them to disperse or something? And the National Guard's like, no. Actually, we agree with them. And he's like,
Ooh,
shit.
fuck. And so he's kind of trapped himself between two ideologies
Yes.
by having this, like, the constitutional monarchy. There's a balancing act between those things.
Well, he's
and
a moderate.
now stuck
Yeah.
between the two
Well,
ideas.
He's
yeah.
moderate. Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, and also, like, if the king played by the rules that would let the monarchy survive inside of a constitutional monarchy, then they would be okay and the people would be okay with them.
But then they couldn't throw as many lavish parties.
Exactly.
Yeah. So when the National Guard decided to disobey his orders, and they were like, actually, you know, these group of women, they're going to march on Versailles. They're going to walk the 13 miles to Versailles to have a word with the king. And honestly, we're going with them. And Lafayette's like, all right. Stay here. I'll take you to Versailles with the group. The National Guard and Lafayette followed the mob to Versailles. And it was actually pouring rain.
Mm-hmm.
This is in October of 1789. Pouring rain. And they walked the 13 miles to Versailles with their fucking torches and pitchforks and big-ass butcher knives.
I'm gonna catch a cold.
They brought him with.
Well,
And they were starving, too.
and there were no, like, fibers that would wick away the rain, so everything absorbed it. All that burlap, cotton,
Yeah.
no polymers yet.
Some skins.
Yeah,
maybe,
and
I don't
just
know.
maybe some animal skins just soaking it all
Soaking
in. And
it.
it's October, so it's either
It's cold and rainy.
hope-
Cold and rainy.
cold and rainy. Got the sniffles.
Ugh. You feel it, don't you? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You feel that cold rain. Ugh.
You just want some red wine and you want some cockabane.
So for the first time since anyone could remember, the gates of Versailles were closed to the jeering mob. Marie Antoinette actually wanted to escape with the children. The guards were like, "Oh, dude, no. They've blocked the stables. We're not going anywhere."
They'll tear you to pieces.
Yeah, they're mad. In fact, they're talking like, you know, for your death. They're talking for your head right now. They're pissed. And they're starting like fires around Versailles.
And this is before what happened to the Russian royal family and Rasputin.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
So okay.
This is like
yeah,
a
yeah, yeah.
century before.
Yeah,
Right. Okay.
but very
Uh,
similar.
Very similar. Fighting against upper classes and out-of-touch aristocracy and dog shit leaders.
Yeah.
Is really what it is. So, yeah, there's some similarity there. Lafayette did not know what he was going to do on his way to Versailles. He had no idea. He's like, I don't know what I'm going to see when I get there. I don't know what I'm going to do with the royal family. But I'm going to do something, you know.
They'll be fine.
So there were, you know, the crowd was pissed off to see the Swiss Guard was there and the Flanders Regiment was there. They're mad at that because they saw it as an insult that you would do this. You don't trust us. You know? It's like, well, you know. But so they're terrified inside of the Palace of Versailles. And then all of a sudden, you know, you hear the zhun, 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 dun, dun, and it's the National Guard coming in.
They're like,
And-
oh, good.
And the mob is like, woohoo, yeah, Lafayette, woohoo, woo. And he comes in because they think that, they
fucking Les Mis.
yeah, they think that the National Guard is there to help them and bolster their ranks and maybe fight the Flanders Regiment.
And boy, were they wrong.
Well, Lafayette didn't want to just start shooting. You know what I mean? Like, he was a level-headed person. He was like, okay, I'm going to go inside Versailles and I'm going to see what's up. And they let him in. Everyone at Versailles is really on edge about seeing Lafayette right now. Because here he is, the leader of the National Guard that's holding Paris, and he's showing up at the head of an army in a uniform. Like, they're thinking he's going to be like a Cromwell, like an English Cromwell, and, like, take, by military coup, the country.
Yeah,
that was not his intention. He was there and he's, like, trying to smooth things over, and he's like, he knew that one false move, like, somebody would shoot him.
Yeah.
Because think about it, you know what I mean? Like, all of a sudden you're in there, and they're like, are you a bad guy?
It's the end of Reservoir Dogs. Stop pointing the gun at my dad!
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Only, things did get smoothed out. So, like, Lafayette shows up when it's starting to turn night. And he goes and he goes, show him a symbol of good faith. Pull back your troops inside the palace, away from the gates. Show that you don't want to do them any harm, and we'll all figure this out tomorrow. And he really calmed everything down inside the palace. Like, Marie Antoinette even went to bed with her children. You know what I mean? During the night, they broke in. And killed several guards. And started storming Versailles. And, like, going through the palace and just, like...
Yeah.
And they started raging in there. And Marie Antoinette...
bullhorns, face painted.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, it was party time.
Marie Antoinette, like, ran for it. Because she had basically a hidden passageway to her husband's room. And it's kind of like a Benny Hill sketch, because she goes through this passageway to go find her husband in his room, and Louis goes around the more public route, through the house, and, like, they don't find each other.
It's like Scooby-Doo.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then they're all in a band together.
Yeah, yakety sax plays. It's an episode of the Monkees or something. There are some women, that Lafayette brings up to the king, and he's like, maybe you want to hear this from the women themselves. And these are just Paris, peasant women. And they're like, all right, you talk to him. And she's like, well, we're mad. And, like, the king, she's standing in front of her king, she passes out.
They're full of ennui and red wine.
Yeah. They sort of talk a little bit about maybe we can still escape. No, that's still out. The crowd is now up to the building. And they're shooting out windows. And they're like, they've already fled. Fuck them. Let's burn this place to the fucking ground. And they're
Guns just came out.
Yeah. They've had some guns. Because they have stormed Versailles. They've picked up, the muskets and...
But, I mean, they're pretty new.
Well, and the National Guard, they're not going to fire on the crowd.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so Lafayette's inside with the royal family, and he's there with King Louis, and he goes, hey, you got to go out there and show them that you're still here. And he's like, are you fucking kidding me? They're calling for my head out there. They're shooting out the windows. Jesus Christ. He's like, I'm serious. Go out there and fucking tell them. And you're like... slowly goes out onto the balcony.
Oh, jeez.
Oh,
You're
no.
a leader. You're a leader. You're a leader. You're a leader. God chose me to rule.
Yeah, exactly. I rule by... That's something he'd like to say all the time, too. I rule by divine right.
Yeah.
Shut up, you fat piece of shit.
Tell that to
Anyway.
the fucking angry mob. You fucking dickhead.
Oh, and they're mad.
Yeah.
And they got heads on sticks at this point. Like, they are mad. They are pissed off. And, like, he can't be heard over the crowd. So he, like, shuffles back inside with his tail in between his legs.
He didn't try using his dad voice?
Yeah. And, well, Lafayette used his dad voice. He was like, hey, Marie Antoinette, come out with me. I'll go with you. I'll go out there with you. And if they see us together, that might placate them. It might show that, I'm on their side, you're on our side, kind of thing. So they go out there. Lafayette tries to speak to the crowd, can't be heard over the crowd. So he kisses her hand. And it does sort of placate the crowd. And they say, long live Lafayette, long live the monarchy, long live the king.
Show us your tits.
But then they say, we're taking the king to Paris. And the king's like, they want what? It's like, you're going to Paris. And he's like, no, I'm not.
Nah.
He's like, yeah, you are.
He's like, pass.
I rule by divine right. Well, maybe when we send you to God, we can send you with a receipt.
When your God shows up, he'll tell everyone what the deal is.
Do you think God would allow for this angry mob surrounding your fucking palace if he was on your side?
Yeah, yeah. They had no choice but to pack up all their shit. Marie Antoinette, like, packed up all of her, like, jewels and diamonds in a little box and clutched them with her children and, like, got in the carriages and started back to Paris. And the thing is, like, they're singing and they're burning shit and, like, all the way back to Paris. 13 miles back to Paris. And they got heads on pikes and shit. They're, like, shooting the guns in the air, and sometimes, like, the bullets, like, whiz over the top of, like, the carriage, and they're like, fuck.
Stop doing that.
They're like, just like 13 miles of Chumbawamba. It's just the one song.
It takes a whiskey drink. It takes a whiskey drink.
I take a whiskey drink. Take a whiskey drink.
And every
Take
time
a
I
whiskey
start
drink,
to get into the
I
song,
take a White Claw drink.
Yeah. And, yeah, Louis was like, no, guys. I was planning on signing the Declaration the whole time.
guys.
He also should be Will Forte.
Yeah.
Guys.
We can do this together.
We can do this together. So he agreed, like, okay, I'm sending the Flanders Regiment back to Flanders. We're going to go to Paris. You know, I'm bringing back Necker. I'm bringing back Jacques Necker. Isn't that great? And everyone's like, good.
Yeah.
But it would be the last time that the royal family ever saw Versailles. Ever.
It's because they
they moved
to Kentucky.
They moved to the abandoned Tuileries Palace in Paris. And that's where they would live out the rest of their days.
Huh.
So the royal family was pretty much prisoners inside of the Tuileries Palace. And one thing that they had to do is they had to show themselves again to the Parisian people and show solidarity again. And so, like, the king and queen came out, and so did Lafayette, and they did this whole, you know, yay, long live the king, and whatnot. And Lafayette was basically just being like, hey, we're all gonna be a couple of Fonzies here. You know, like,
real cool.
We're gonna
Real
be cool, you know?
If the jukebox isn't playing what you want, you can hit it. Chumbawamba will come right on.
They're gonna hit it. Real hard. Harder than Fonzie would have done.
Fonzie was not a violent man.
He kept his anger under the surface where it belongs.
And he died in his early 40s of brain cancer.
Unlike Henry Winkler, who will live to be 300 years old.
Yeah.
Oh, like Master Roshi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or Methuselah.
I don't know who that is, but
He's the oldest character on Happy Days.
Keeps predicting things.
he's the guy that owned the diner. I remember now.
Yeah.
Played by Pat
Morita.
Morita.
Now, Lafayette would come to deeply regret these actions of showing solidarity between the people and the king. Because the people would come to think, oh, you're a royalist. And the aristocracy would be like, you're just one of them. You know what I mean? So everyone now is starting to look at Lafayette and be like, you're not a savior.
We hate you.
You know what I mean? We all hate you, you know?
You better switch sides real quick.
Well, the more radical factions of Paris believed that there couldn't be liberty with the monarch. As being, you know, like, that seems obvious to us today. But to Lafayette, it was like, no, you know, he's riding a middle ground, and these guys are like, take out the king, no more king. Yeah, we're going to be a republic. To us, it sounds easy, but back then...
I mean, you got England that still has a royal family.
Yeah, exactly.
And, they need to get rid of that.
Yeah. So Jean-Paul Marat, who was a radically left-wing writer at the time, his newspaper was the one that was always talking shit about Lafayette and like anyone that sided with royals at any point. He fucking took Lafayette to the cleaners in his newspapers. And actually Lafayette was like, maybe the freedom of the press wasn't such a great idea. Because like it's before like there's all these like libel and slander laws that were there. And
I mean, I think also this time in the United States, that shit's also happening where like people are just publishing just
whatever they want.
Again, fucking Alexander Hamilton being like, "Go fuck yourself, Burr," typing that up, sending that
Send it to
the
the printer.
Yeah, and it's here that you get a bunch of political cartoons depicting Lafayette on a horse that is a dick and balls.
Nice.
And, are
you going to post these?
I could. Probably, I might post them on Discord because it's hard to post these publicly because they are pornographic.
They're posted publicly back then?
Yeah.
Dude,
They did.
So, for all of our listeners that really want to get in on the hotter part of history, you got to get on our Discord so you can see these cartoons are like... You're gonna get so fucking turned
you'll
on.
see our own cartoons that we make.
You want to see Lafayette riding a horse that's also a dick, like straight up to Marie Antoinette's house, and like I don't know, she's there.
They're tentacles.
Yeah, you see it. You see everything.
They were particularly mean to Marie Antoinette. They called her the Austrian whore.
Aww.
And there was pictures of Comte d'Artois, fondling Marie Antoinette. There was pictures of Lafayette fondling Marie Antoinette. Pretty much anyone.
That seems very rude to me.
There was
pictures. I know I made jokes earlier, but I wasn't trying to criticize her. I feel like she's getting an undue amount
100%
of vitriol just for being a woman.
It's
That's
crazy
really what's happening.
how that works, right?
That's why I say, like, I
agree.
do defend
well, that's what
Marie
it was
Antoinette,
like when you were like, oh, she was sleeping around. I was like, good for her is really what I was thinking.
No, she
didn't mean
wasn't.
it in a bad way.
I honestly don't, like, she may have had an affair to have an heir, but I think all that was kept under wraps. I think all of this is mere rumor. And just to discredit the royal family,
well, that's the other thing. Is it's like
whether or not she slept around is irrelevant. They were doing that just to discredit.
Well, it's also how you attack women is making them sexually promiscuous.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
yeah.
It's literally the oldest trick in the book.
Yeah.
I mean, like they're like. Lafayette rides a dick that's also a horse. Marie Antoinette fucks everybody and she loves it because she's a whore. Like, that's like...
That's what they're saying.
Yeah, like, it's... The way that they attack people are, like...
That's their words, by the way.
Well, no,
yeah. No,
please don't quote me on that.
No.
But
that's their words.
Yeah, like, I'm saying, like that's the disparity in how you criticize a man versus a woman who's literally royalty.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's some 2 cents... 2 cent fucking...
Yeah.
It's a 2 cent joke.
It's cheap.
Yeah.
It's cheap.
We would never make such a joke.
We've made dozens of those jokes.
It's like our main thing.
Yeah.
We don't punch down like that, though.
At least I try not to, but...
I don't think we do. I don't think we punch down.
How can you punch down to the Queen of France?
Well, I mean, like...
I know what you mean. Attacking her for being a woman.
Peasants of the era, also there was probably some people that were promiscuous in there too, and also some men that also rode penises. Now we punch down.
Yeah.
It was sort of at this point where Lafayette began his descent from France's good graces.
Into madness.
France started its descent into madness. It started Lafayette's sort of descent out of France's good graces, is what happened.
Well, good thing he's an American citizen.
He's not an American citizen. He is an honorary citizen of Virginia, Connecticut, and Massachusetts.
Never mind.
He was actually made an American citizen much later. I think actually in 2002?
If I was him...
Seriously. It was much later.
It's weird that he was still alive then.
No, he wasn't. But...
He's like, any chance I could become an honorary refugee of any of those places?
Oh, yes. Trust me. We'll get to that. For now, the people generally regarded Lafayette still predominantly as a valiant savior and friend of the people who had their interests in mind. On the first anniversary of the storming of the Bastille, everyone, commoners, clergy, and nobles alike, they all worked together to make a huge party happen. This was called the Fête de la Fédération. It was on July 14th, 1790, the one-year anniversary of the storming of the Bastille. And what they were going to do is they're going to have this big old party, and they were just they were going to solidify the new French ideals that the Bastille was all about, right? And Lafayette was right in the middle of it. And the whole thing took place in the Champ de Mars. It's like the park where the Eiffel Tower now sits.
Oh, okay. Cool.
And
It's a park dedicated to the god of war, and they're going to have a party there. And
the Field of Mars.
Yeah, the Field of Mars.
They're having a party at the Field of Mars.
Yeah.
Badass.
And there was like a big thing built there. And in the middle was like this altar to France, right? Lafayette gets up there with his National Guard troops, and he pulls out his sword, and they're all in full military regalia. The king and queen are there, the whole royal family's there. Everyone is there. People come from all over the provinces to the Fête de la Fédération, and he takes his sword out, and he places it on the altar, and he recites an oath that he will always fight for the law and what is right and just in France.
It's Poitou Town, boy.
And he, his soldiers also take the oath, and the king takes the oath. And sort of says, basically, that he is a
Piece of
constitutional monarch.
shit.
And so everyone's like, oh my god, Did we win?
Did
is
we
this
just
over?
get a figurehead?
Yeah, is this over? Is the revolution over? Did we figure it out? They didn't. But that was the attitude during this time, and it was sort of the zenith of Lafayette's popularity and Lafayette's glory, I guess, within France.
That summer, everyone had Lafayette fever. Big time. They were wearing Lafayette masks.
He had the #1 hit single that year. #1 with a bullet.
Yeah.
That would actually come much later.
Oh.
He's swinging around that saber, cutting the tops off of champagne bottles, and everyone's laughing and laughing.
Laughing with Laffy. That was the show.
Yep.
Laugh in.
And honestly, some people thought that Lafayette might use this opportunity to take control of France.
And
Again, he's at the head of the military.
More tops off, more champagne bottles.
He should be king of France, this guy.
But he didn't. He didn't do it. Because, again, Lafayette was a man of his principles, if nothing else. That's what he was. So the next few years were hard for Lafayette to walk that line between liberty, like the liberty-loving friend of the people, and the humble servant of his lord and master, King Louis XVI. You just can't be both.
It is
Can't be all things to all people.
It is my honor to be your obedient servant.
And also your
That's
greatest
Hamilton
rival.
again. I'm sorry.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
But that's sort of the attitude, you know what I mean, that he certainly had.
He was like Mac from It's Always Sunny. He was playing both sides.
Yeah.
So that he always comes out on top.
Yeah. If you play both sides, you always come out on top.
I feel like we make a lot of references to that show, but we don't call attention to it.
No, we don't.
But it's like Simpsons, King of the Hill, Always Sunny.
Yeah.
In that order.
Yeah. There's
Seinfeld.
Seinfeld might be Simpsons, Seinfeld, King of the Hill.
If you want everyone to drop out of the chat, just start making Seinfeld references.
Now, a rumor circulated that a group of armed nobles were going to help the royal family escape Paris and maybe go off somewhere else.
Yeah, just fuck off.
And that pissed the people of Paris off to hear
They
about
should go
this.
to England.
Well, anywhere else but France, pretty much. And that really pissed them off because they're like, no, they're in Paris for a reason, so we can keep an eye on them. You know what I mean?
Did Marie Antoinette happen to be like, I heard Austria's really nice this time of year, and I got a lot of friends from college I miss?
Have you ever been to Vienna?
Yeah,
Come
pretty
on.
much. Well,
I got family there.
Well, that and this time, Austria controlled the Netherlands. They're called the Austrian Netherlands. So, in the north, there was an escape route.
The Dutch again.
Yeah.
They hang out with the Hulk.
Yeah, and Lafayette was actually going to let the royal family leave to go to Italy for mass. But the National Guard, again, disobeyed his order and was like, no, they're not going to leave. They're staying right here. Yeah. And so there was another rumor that these nobles were going to go into the Tuileries Palace and take the royal family out and take them somewhere else. Mm-hmm. And there were
right?
Yeah, to dinner.
There were nobles, armed nobles, that were going inside, but they were going into, quote-unquote, protect the royal family. And there was a mob outside, and Lafayette stuck in the middle. And basically, he went inside, and there's all these nobles that are like, trying to fuck me up? I'll fuck you up. And they had, like, a standoff.
Oh, they wish a motherfucker would.
Yeah.
And, they were talked down, you know, and it was sort of... It was smoothed over. It was called the Day of Daggers.
Oh, Dagger Day.
Yeah.
It was
Dagger Tuesday.
It was a dagger day in that place.
Yeah.
It's like a banner day, but with more daggers.
Yeah. Lafayette was really good. Like, you know, we saw it at the Battle of Brandywine. We saw it at his retreat. You know, all these things where he just kept his cool.
He's real Fonzie.
He's a Fonzie. And he always kept his cool during these moments of just insanity, where anything could go wrong.
Arthur Fonzarelli was actually based off of Lafayette.
Yeah. It's actually Arthur Lafayette Fonzarelli is his full name.
All right. Fonzarellion.
The Marquis de Fonzarelli. So stupid. Oh my god.
If
I want to watch that show.
If there was a guy who was holding a lute and not playing one, he'd punch him in the face and he'd start playing it and he'd be like, "That's better."
He goes up to the jukebox and hits it and goes, ho, ho, ho.
He lives. Instead of going, hey.
Yeah.
He lives in the storage space
Sacre bleu.
above King Louis's garage.
Yeah, right. By the way, sacre bleu doesn't mean anything.
It means
It's
sacred.
it's a nonsense word. Now, there was another thing that happened. This was away from Paris, in one of the military regiments. There were these mutineers. And basically what happened is that they demanded to see the regimental books. And they were like, we're going to audit them.
Oh no.
And the commanders were like, no, you're not. And they're like, well, then we're going to mutiny. And they mutinied and took over their fort, and an army had to come in and dislodge them. It killed about 500 people.
Jeez.
It was a bloodbath. And the organizers of the mutiny were hung or thrown in jail or, you know, all these things. It didn't really look good.
Yeah.
In considering what was going on in Paris.
The
It
good
did not
news-
look good.
It wasn't good look.
In the audit, there was a list of the poorest fighters, the poorest soldiers that they had, and they were like, exactly 500. Cool, let's move on.
Their books were tight. They weren't even cooked. They were raw.
Oh,
Raw books.
it was books Carpaccio.
So nothing was really looking good in France at this time, as it was slowly descending into the eventual madness of the Terror. Now, of course, the king and queen kind of saw this coming. They're like day by day, they're just like, we gotta get the fuck out of here. Like, they hate us. And it seems like at a drop of a hat, they're calling for our heads. Like, who knows when that's gonna actually be real. So they decided that they had to make a break for it, for the Austrian Netherlands, to catch up with some of Marie Antoinette's friends, like Tyler was saying earlier.
From college.
Well, because the rest of the monarchies of Europe were looking at France and, like, not intervening. First off, France had been, like, the biggest bully on the block the whole time. Remember in the Terrar episode when I was telling you about this? We're going to see this happen in this episode. So they were like, well, first off, we can't have that shit spreading to us. We can't have this revolutionary idea spreading to us. We don't want what you guys have.
Yeah.
But if Louis and Marie Antoinette are successful in making it to us, then we will help them recapture their throne. Right?
All right.
So,
Rich people be scheming.
yeah. So,
It's like Crusader Kings.
yeah, exactly. So, disguised in the middle of the night, in the dead of night, the royal family got into a carriage. King Louis, who was dressed up like the
Like a woman.
No.
That
was Lafayette.
I almost said Terry Crews.
Terry Jones.
He was dressed up like Terry Crews, eating yogurt.
He was dressed up as just like a driver of the carriage. He almost ran into Lafayette on the way out of the Tuileries, because like Lafayette would like make his rounds.
That sounds like a sitcomish fucking.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, Lafayette would like make his rounds, you know, because even the general.
I thought you meant you ran into him with the carriage, because he's like, I'm
He was
dressed as a
racing.
carriage driver, but I don't know how to drive this thing.
on his way out, he almost ran into him. But they had a real carriage driver. He was just made to look like one.
Lou was like, "Oh, excuse me, sir."
Yeah.
Is he dressed as a woman?
Yeah.
Which I think is funny.
Well, Lafayette was also dressed as a woman for a different scheme that he was doing.
It's totally unrelated.
He
scheme.
actually planned 2 dates with 2 different women on the same night. And
It was a
eventually,
Mrs. Doubtfire
Yeah.
situation.
he just
Yeah.
wants to be with his kids.
Now, there was a whole plan, right, to get to the border and everything, but their carriage broke down, and so they were delayed by a lot of time. So, like, the people on the Austrian side of the border were like, guess they're not coming. And, like,
Went home.
they...
Fuck it.
Oh my god.
And so they get all the way to Veren, right? This is why it's called the flight to Veren. 'Cause it should say, like how Mike Duncan said, the flight as far as Veren.
Yeah.
Because what happened was they stopped there. There was a astute observer, and it said that he recognized the king from his vestige on a coin because of his nose.
It's like,
His nose.
Real schnoz.
Yeah. He was like flipping the coin.
Yeah.
I like.
for the viewers at home, I'm
History is
pretending to look
remembered.
at the coin and then look at the face and look at the coin, which is super weird. That's like happening to have like TMZ
He's
open
like-
on your phone.
He's like holding it up.
yeah. And like,
So this guy, we don't know his name.
We do. I'm not going
Okay.
to trouble you.
I just thought it was funny that we remember
Unless
one
we do
man
the-
from history.
probably-
Unless
Jacques.
we actually do the French Revolution, I'm not going to really
Oh,
trouble
okay.
you.
I was just saying that
those
we have
details.
one man in history who is remembered as being an astute observer.
Yeah, I think he was a
That's his
he
main
was
thing.
a postmaster. I can't exactly remember, but
He was out
he,
there flipping a coin.
he
and then mid flip, it was like,
what he did.
and he saw, and it lined perfectly up
time.
with the king's face.
It like lines up perfectly with the king's face, and he's like,
He's like, the Romany curse was correct.
that's him firing a gun
Yeah,
at the
yeah.
king.
I can't remember if it was him or a different guy that he was with at the stop. You know, when they stopped there, somebody dropped to their knee in front of the king.
Because it's king.
It's the king.
God's gonna be pissed
and
if you don't.
and
Good to be the king.
because
Same
the
king.
king is so proud, instead of going like, I'm not the king, what are you talking about, and just deny, he went, ha ha, I'm your king.
Couldn't go 1 second.
They straight up were like, he's right here. And they're like, oh,
Fuck.
really? And they grabbed him and took him back to Paris. Now, before they found out all of this, in Paris, like, everyone's like, he fucking fled. Are you kidding me? And there's people like Lafayette and some of these people that are like, he was kidnapped. And they're like, well, that's false. That's fucking false, and you know it, buddy.
You're a fucking.
And and Lafayette's
liar.
like, what if the fucking Parisian people find out the truth? That their own king ran away because it got too scary.
they're gonna kill you.
It would descend into anarchy is what it would do.
Anarchy.
So what happened is everyone blamed Lafayette. Because Lafayette was in charge of keeping them under wraps. He was responsible for the royal family, and here they are running away. You know, so this didn't help Lafayette at all.
The king's like, Lafayette, okay, I know it looks bad, but I need you to cook up one of your signature Lafayette schemes. And so we ran in the night. What is the night? Scary. So what I need you to do is tell everyone that we were scared of the dark, and so we wanted to go further east towards Austria, where the northeast,
It's kind of northeast.
ish,
Sort of.
Well, no,
slight.
Netherlands.
Yeah.
Austria
Netherlands.
is
Yeah.
east.
Austria is, but
Oh,
Austria
wait, no,
Netherlands.
oops,
Northeast.
Austria, Netherlands. So north, because in our minds, north is closer to where the sun it will get brighter faster there because it's farther up.
If it's summer,
it's more up, and then the sun comes
closer
up.
to the sun.
Where are you going with this, Tyler?
And then it's not scary anymore. You guys were just scared of the dark. You guys were scared. The royal family's scared of the dark. Everyone is. It makes us relatable, and people love things they can relate to. Also, take this illustration of me and Marie Antoinette eating hot dogs.
Means nothing. It's not Freudian.
Yeah, it's not Freudian. This isn't... And it doesn't matter that my hot dog has a weird casing on the outside that makes it hard for me to have more children.
It makes a bow in the inside of my own skin.
Sometimes I just
Oh, my
let Tyler
God.
talk to see where it goes,
Yeah.
and it often absolutely pays off.
Anyway, he's trying to
my
make
God.
himself more relatable, and he needs Lafayette to essentially be
He's scared of the dark.
guy.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Netherlands is less dark. Apparently.
no one was buying that the royal family was kidnapped.
Yeah,
no
they
one
didn't
was
buy
buying
this for.
Yeah.
They didn't buy Netherlands gets sunlight earlier.
it. No,
at all.
they weren't buying any of that
They're
dumb
like,
shit.
They're like, it's north, not east, you dick.
It's like, well, I don't know. I don't know my way around.
it's a little northeast.
Lafayette tried in vain to convince everyone that, they'd been captured. He urged everybody for the rule of law. Hey, we gotta talk about the law here. We gotta talk about all this stuff. No one was fucking buying that shit anymore. No one wanted to hear that anymore. They were like, we don't need a king anymore. We need a republic. That's what their new thing
You are
was.
really helping us realize that's the case.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Now Lafayette was now seen as a jailer of the royal family to the nobles, and the royal family, and a royalist to everyone else. Like this really solidified that.
Yeah.
Now on July 17th, 1791, there was a demonstration that was organized at the Champ de Mars by the radicals to either abolish the monarchy or let the monarchy die in referendum to a vote. Right? Now Lafayette, being the head of the National Guard, was sent to keep the peace. And the crowd was getting pretty rowdy. And he issued warnings. He sort of made them disperse at first, and then they came back. And they came back even meaner, and they were throwing rocks and insults. They were booing Lafayette for like the first time ever. And Lafayette's like, draw your guns. And like, they formed up and drew their guns, throwing rocks at him, and stuff like that. So he goes, all right, over their heads. And they fire a volley over the crowd's heads.
And then the dudes on the other side of the camp just fall down.
And the crowd kind of continues to jeer. Even they laugh at him. And they continue to jeer and throw rocks and stuff. Now, what comes next is still argued about to this day. There's some apologists out there that will say no order was given. There's some people out there, if you go to France, they will say that Lafayette ordered his troops to fire on the crowd. The point is that his troops fired on the crowd.
Bad move.
Fired live rounds onto this crowd of innocent people.
Talk about a big whoopsie there.
Yeah. And
Oopsie daisy.
Now they're pushing daisies.
it killed 50 and wounded dozens. Dozens upon dozens.
What it seems like to me is like
Adjusted for inflation, that's thousands.
God, Jesus Christ!
hey,
It's
he's
a
saying
bunch of
their
people.
lives were worth more.
It's a shit ton of people.
Lives are worth less now.
People were hardier
At least 50 people died.
Yeah.
Okay, at least 50 people died.
What I'm saying is, like, if I think about the reality of it, let's say some of the people, Lafayette's men, felt threatened.
Yes.
They start firing, and then everybody starts firing. That could have happened. Or he could have given the order. I'm saying both the reality of both of those. Like, I feel like he could have been like, they're not fucking listening. Mm-hmm. We gave him a chance. You fired above. Didn't stop. Fire at them. Or somebody in one of his men started firing.
Yeah.
Well,
Either case, they're his men,
yep.
and he's responsible.
He's responsible. Yeah.
That's my point, I guess.
It's
It's
kinda-
you can't say for sure because we don't know.
It's kind of like when
It's like the shot heard around the world. Nobody really knows.
I've seen enough movies, yeah.
Well,
I know how it goes.
It's kind of like when
seen movies.
that Seattle police officer pepper sprayed a little girl, and then it went to shit, and then all of a sudden the cops just started shooting tear gas at people, and because they started shooting tear gas, they started burning cars.
The cops
That's
started.
what we're talking about.
It's called
cops-
escalation.
The cops started that shit.
Yeah.
Lafayette's National Guard.
It's the same
started this.
thing in Lafayette Square in Washington, D.C. back in the summer.
Yeah,
Trump's fucking cronies fired at the crowd.
yeah.
And that's
Ordered by
what-
Trump, though.
Well, and the cop in Seattle was like,
He's an underling.
well, he was like,
That girl had a gun.
The dude from Willow was yelling at me, and I appreciate all the hard work he's done. Oh my god! But I gotta maintain order. And then someone was like, "Dude, that was a kid," and he was like, "Fuck! I knew I picked a bad day to like forget my glasses." And then things
He's
just
like,
escalated.
I'm Mr. Magoo.
I'm Mr. Magoo, and that is not Warwick Davis.
Mr. Magoo pepper sprayed that little girl thinking it was Warwick
Yeah.
Davis.
And he's like-
We've all been there.
Yeah.
He's like,
We've
so
all been
thank
there.
God when the fucking coronavirus pandemic goes away, I can go to Comic-Con, get Warwick Davis's fucking autograph, guilt-free.
Because I didn't pepper spray him. I just
my
pepper sprayed
God.
a child.
And then I can explain, finally.
He's like,
to
hey,
Warwick
when-
Davis,
Davis.
I was not going to pepper spray you.
Funny story, Wicket. So I thought I pepper sprayed you in the face last summer.
Why'd you call him Wicket?
Because he was
Star
Wicket the Ewok in Return
Oh,
of the
yeah,
Jedi.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Also Willow.
I know, you're probably like, you mean Willow?
Yeah.
But he was Wicked.
Yeah.
And Willow.
Yeah.
A few goblins?
Yeah, he was
He was the leprechaun in the Leprechaun series.
Yeah, you're goddamn right he was.
Oh, yeah, he was. Jennifer Aniston was in the first Leprechaun
Yep.
movie.
he was also some other banker-style characters in the Harry Potter series. Way to go, J.K. Rowling.
He played like 4 characters in Harry Potter.
Yeah.
He was that one teacher.
They're like,
and
we
then-
need someone under 4'5". Like,
Yeah.
go you.
Warwick Davis.
Cut that
dope.
out.
So, this was known as the Champ de Mar Massacre. For good reason. It was a
Because it was a
massacre.
massacre.
It was a massacre.
Sean Lamar.
On the Champ de Mar.
Yeah, makes sense. I put the pieces together. That's
thank
why
you.
it was called that.
Thank you.
What's it a name?
It was the Battle of Shawnamar.
So if you go, if you go to Paris
That's a
and
deep cut.
yeah, if you go to Paris and you take a tour, they'll say, "Here's a Champ de Mars where Lafayette opened fire, gave the order to open fire on innocent people." That's what they will say.
I still think
I
his
am
man
s-
fired.
I'm saying it doesn't matter if he gave the order or not. His men that he's
That's my
responsible
point.
for open fire.
Agreed.
So doesn't
That's
fucking
what
matter.
happened.
Yeah.
Should have trained him better if he didn't want him firing.
Yeah. So Lafayette was ripped apart in the press by the radical Maximilien Robespierre, Jean-Paul Marat, and Georges Danton.
All the guys that he liked.
He wasn't really friends with those dudes.
No.
Those dudes are way radical. They never liked Lafayette, honestly.
They're
Really
like, he's not
never.
radical enough.
Yeah.
We're out
calling
here
him
doing
a poser.
kickflips on our fucking skateboards.
Yeah. They were like members of the Jacobin Club. The Jacobin Club were like the radicals. So when the Assembly, quote unquote, finalized the Constitution in September of 1791, I say quote unquote finalized because again it was ignored, then taken up, and then all this shit happened. Anyway, in September of 1791, Lafayette actually resigned his post in the French National Guard because he saw that they're okay, there is a constitution, great, I'm out. And everyone's like, don't let the door hit you on the way out. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that's how it was. They were glad to see him go. Which sucks, because that's quite a fall from grace
I
from where
liked
he was.
Laffy more before.
Yeah. Yeah. He was, complicated guy, but
mean,
he
they all
stuck
are.
to his guns. Yeah, he was human.
Apparently,
He
he
was
did stick to his guns, and that's what got him fucking fired.
I get it. Because they fired on a crowd.
Yeah.
He returned to the Auvergne, where he was born, and just sort of kind of kept his head down for a while. But he didn't stay there for long, because on April 20th, 1792, France declared war on Austria.
Fuck.
While all this stuff is popping off.
Smart move,
Wait.
idiot.
Yeah.
Talking about France.
Yeah.
How did Marie Antoinette feel about that?
Didn't matter.
Who gives
Because
a fuck?
France wasn't controlled by the king or Marie Antoinette by this time.
Oh, I get you. Sorry.
It was controlled by the National Assembly that went by a different name by this point.
Well,
They were
cut
rich
back.
spectators watching something that was tangentially connected to their past.
Yeah. The French government French acting government, I should say, decided to do it because, I mean, frankly, Austria and Prussia were getting a little hostile towards France, and they wanted to, I don't
Talk some
know,
shit.
Yeah, they're
strike
like,
before,
hey, fucker!
yeah, strike before,
Fuck you, fucker!
yeah, they could really mobilize. But the thing was, like, Prussia and Austria were in no hurry to, like, invade. They were like, these guys, they don't have a fucking
They're like,
government.
I'm Prussia. I'm going to be around forever.
Yeah. Well, Frederick the Great was in charge of Prussia at this time, and he was like, "Oh, crush you," and he would have if he would have gone on, if he would have been more on top of it. He took a sweet ass time. Everyone did because France didn't have a operating government in their eyes.
Well, and things were just more laid back then. Everyone just,
That's exactly the opposite.
It's the opposite, buddy. Totally the opposite. In fact, I'm going to say this again. We pretty much say this every episode, but no TV.
Yeah.
TV has made us laid back.
Yeah.
Without TV, we were fucking in it to win it.
Yeah.
As a human race, I mean. Like, in it to win it
And
with
winning
every
it
little
is
thing.
subjugating everyone else around you and
When I say-
standing on
yeah.
a pile
So-
of corpses.
Yeah,
with
when
a
I say
flag.
when I say in it to win it, I mean death.
So what you're saying is that
And
we
destruction.
truly owe the state of world peace that we're all enjoying right
To
now
television.
to Mary Tyler Moore and
Yes.
Dick Van Dyke.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah. The Hollywood elites.
everything else has been rich man's wars, like Vietnam and
The Marvel Cinematic Universe
Idiot.
is the reason we live in a futuristic utopia. I've said it before, and I will say it again.
we have very complicated diplomatic relationships across the globe, and we have since World War II, and that's the reason that's what's gotten us into
Yeah.
other wars. We haven't done anything like World War II in a very long time, where like World War II was like supposedly our the war you couldn't avoid, right?
The
Fighting
war to end
forces
all
of evil.
wars.
Well, that was World War One, but
Well, yeah.
And
the
it did.
World War II was like the fight against evil, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, it was, but
Yeah, I mean,
But everyone's evil. That's
but
the problem.
but after the war, it becomes anyway. We had TV
they have
afterwards.
concentration camps now. We have concentration
We don't
camps.
fight-
It's all the same.
we don't fight wars against evil anymore. Is my point?
Because we're all evil.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm so
pretty
fucking
much.
evil.
Pretty much.
Hail Satan.
We have a hypnotized, inoculated from horror populace.
Well,
And TV has done this to us, and the internet has reinforced it.
and if anything, I feel like because of the evil that people do, Satan's like, hail people.
There's no such thing as Satan or God.
There's no such thing as God.
No such thing as Satan either.
I'm kidding. Of course, I don't fucking
There's
love
no
Satan.
such thing as Satan, just God when he's drunk.
But also hail Satan.
Tom Waits
That's a
reference.
Tom
Thank
Waits
you.
reference. Okay, back to the story. So when France declared war on Austria, Lafayette saw an opportunity to maybe salvage some of his reputation. And he accepted the post of leading the French troops in the center. His army was in the center, attacking the Austrian Netherlands. And when he got to his post, he noticed that his men were ill-equipped, undertrained, altogether ill-prepared for a war. Some of the first battles, they would just run away.
That's not how you win.
Yeah.
Unless, sometimes it is, actually. I take that back.
There are tactical retreats. Absolutely.
As we talked about in the previous
Yeah,
episode.
Right.
George Washington, master of the tactical retreat. No, this was a rabble, and there was no way of fixing it. There was no money. There was there's no way France could have supported this war. This was the war of the First Coalition, the one that Tarare became a messenger during.
Right.
Lafayette and Rochambeau was also one of the generals looking after his troops fighting against the Austrians. And both of them were like, this is so fucked. We're going to get our asses kicked out here.
So do we get to cue the 80s montage scene? Where
No,
Not
'cause
this
that didn't
time.
happen. That didn't happen. What did happen is while this is going on, shit is still popping off in France. Lafayette and Rochambeau and a few other high-ranking officers are like, you guys, we have got to sue for peace here. Because if we don't, it's going to be costly in both lives and money. We are just not equipped to go to war right now. And Lafayette, they all wrote a letter and all signed it and sent it back, and they were like, pfft, and whatever. So Lafayette actually came back to Paris.
This is a fucking mess.
It is a mess. Lafayette came back, left his post, came back to Paris, and he was like, guys, we can't do this. Seriously, we cannot do this. And they're like, what the fuck are you doing here? You abandoned your post. Get back there. You're a fucking traitor. You're an aristocratic traitor, and what you were doing is you were sabotaging the French army because you want the monarchy back. And he was like,
All right.
And he
I
left.
just can't win.
Yeah.
And then
left.
he walked into the ocean.
And well, the thing is there was precedence for this. There was a Battle of Marcoing where the French army in this specific division, they were badly beaten. And their Irish-born commander, his last name was Dillon, they drug him back to the town of Lille after they were defeated. And they ripped him to pieces because they called him an aristocratic traitor.
Dylan getting the chopper.
And there were a lot of conspiracy theories going around that anyone that was aristocratic in the military was just conspiring against the French army to get the king back. Like what the Austrians and the Prussians wanted, right?
Huh.
So Lafayette and Rochambeau, a few other people knew this. And they were like, I didn't want it to go this far. And I never wanted to do this. But I'm going to have to do the unthinkable.
I never meant for there to be all this madness.
Exactly. So he deserted. And they, hoping that he would get a ship back to the United States, Lafayette went across the border into Austria, the Austrian Netherlands. And he was immediately arrested. And the thing is that, like, Robespierre and Danton, everyone was like, you're an enemy of the people, you're a friend of monarchy. But as soon as he crossed the border into Austria, they were like, you are an enemy of monarchy, and you bring revolution wherever you go. You are a man of revolution, aren't you? You're a man of Enlightenment thought, aren't you?
He's like, I'm just a man who wants to go to the Austrian Netherlands where the sun is always shining. 2 hours earlier than in Paris, France.
So they threw him in jail. Actually, by this point, he wasn't referred to as Marquis de Lafayette. He was referred to as Gilbert Motier. Because the French Assembly decided that they were going to do away with all aristocratic titles.
Okay.
So, like, there was all these people that all of a sudden were going by their other name, you know? So Gilbert Motier is what they would have called him during this specific time period. He was tossed into prison to await whatever he didn't know. He was moved around a lot, too, by the Prussians and...
They probably beat the shit out of him.
Oh, God. He was in solitary confinement the entire time. It was like a dark cell, and he languished there.
Or as they called it back in those days, normal stuff.
It's a normal cell. And he would hear, only sometimes, rumors of the madness that was happening in France, of the reign of terror, and nearly daily beheadings with the guillotine.
Shit's fucked.
Yeah, and...
Good thing you're in jail.
I mean, think about that from his point of view. Like, here's a guy that went to America to fight for liberty and all these high-minded ideals, and he wanted nothing but to fight for the same thing, just in a French uniform.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And now here he is in jail, where he has deserted his army. Shit has gotten that bad. They're chopping off heads daily in France. And he's just, oh my God, I can't fuck, like, what he must have felt must have been crazy. His family's still out there.
Yeah.
And his family's still royal. Or, well, aristocratic.
Yeah.
Right.
Adrienne, her family is well-to-do, the Noailles. The males of the Noailles family left. They fled the country. George Washington Lafayette was smuggled to the United States, where he was, held there by sympathetic people.
I thought you were going to say routinely smoked, like most things smuggled in the United States.
Yeah.
It was smuggled and snorted,
Yeah.
and everyone got high.
They snorted him.
Yeah.
They got high as shit and rock hard.
Yeah.
Now,
As is tradition.
at this point in time, the United States didn't have any diplomatic relations with Austria or Prussia. So they didn't hold any weight with the Austrians or the Prussians. The best they could do was send him money to help him sort of survive in prison. Lafayette's saving grace was his wife, Adrienne, because she stayed with their 2 children. So did her mother and sister, I believe. What happened is that during the Reign of Terror, they were just killing aristocrats because they were aristocrats. Her mother and sister were killed on the same day with the guillotine, and Adrienne was in prison. Her name was on the list. She was gonna get her head chopped off, except James Monroe and James Madison and Dolly Madison intervened. And they said, we love Marquis de Lafayette, and if you fucking cut his wife's head off, we're gonna be pissed.
Were they weren't in France at the time, were they?
No. But they sent
letters.
They sent messages and whatnot, and France, even though shit was crazy, they still needed those sweet trade deals that Lafayette fucking engineered, to help them make money. So they didn't want that to go away. So they decided to take Adrienne off the list, off the death list. And,
Off the chopping block.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
seriously.
Quite literally.
they released her from prison. That was because of James and Elizabeth Monroe and James and Dolly Madison. They really sunk that nail home. They saved her life and her daughter's lives, probably. What happened is the French revolutionary government seized all of Lafayette's property, including in French New Guinea, and the slaves. And Adrienne was like, we were supposed to free those guys. Can you at least do that?
And they're like, no, we got free slaves. That's like a double slave.
Well, they were like, well, just sell it. We need the money more than anything.
Yeah.
Eventually, they were like, all right, we'll free him. But that wouldn't last very long.
And little would they know that letting Adrienne Lafayette go was the biggest mistake they'd ever make, because she would manufacture revenge on the highest levels.
I'm sure she wanted to.
And she's gonna get so rich.
She is she is absolutely a hero of this story. If it wasn't for Adrienne Lafayette, nothing from this point on would have happened. Like, Lafayette would have died in that cell. Honestly, she was penniless, and she didn't have any of her family's money or anything like that. She actually crossed the border into Austria and demanded to be in the same cell with her children, except for George Washington, with her children, and she demanded that if her husband was going to be in this prison cell, so were they. And they agreed.
Young George Washington Lafayette was having his teeth removed that day and being replaced with wooden teeth to be much like his namesake.
Yeah. Painful.
Yeah, it's no way to be a child.
Yeah.
He's going to be carrying that memory.
You cut
for the
down
rest of his
so
life.
many cherry trees.
Yeah. They're like, you do like the thing. You do like the thing we heard about. Stop crying about all your teeth getting pulled out.
He's like, you know, guys, I'm gonna go cut down a bunch of cherry trees.
No.
They're
They would
gonna
do
grow-
that every day.
Your teeth are going to grow back. We just knocked out your baby teeth.
That's so fucked up. That's a child that they're just punching his teeth.
Be
They're just your
like
baby
the guy
teeth.
from
Be like a
America.
man. Be like a man. We're knocking out your teeth. Stop crying. Anyway.
Men don't
so-
have baby teeth.
So for 2 years,
It's
so for 2 years, Lafayette and Adrienne and their two daughters were in a Prussian prison, which is insane.
Prussian prison.
Because they were moved around a lot
I call that an all-inclusive resort.
Oh, yeah.
these days.
It's like a sitcom.
Prussian prison in the 1700s sounds, it's like a Mar-a-Lago situation, I imagine.
Yeah. So meanwhile, Robespierre and everyone, the more radicals in Paris, they're burning Lafayette in effigy. Like, they hate him down there. And, he's languishing in prison, and hearing about all this stuff. And it hurts him. It hurts him to hear about this stuff, about his beloved France going down this route.
Well, he's the third bowl of porridge, and in this case, being just right is not right.
It's not just right. Yeah, exactly.
Too hot is winning.
Yeah, too hot's winning hard. With the very bloody reign of terror over, it drew to a close. And the way that happened, there was this insanely successful military commander that was very successful in the War of the First Coalition. And honestly, this really surprised the Austrians and the Prussians because, I mean, if you really think about it, this government by the rabble, without a real solid foundation, governmentally speaking, should have been a pushover. And somehow they were winning. This commander that was winning was a guy, maybe you've heard of him, his name was Napoleon Bonaparte.
No, I'm thinking of Dynamite.
Yeah. Not from Idaho.
You're referring to the character in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
The
Sort of.
fictional character.
The fictional. Yeah, that's the fictional Napoleon Bonaparte.
I like the part where he, like, gets in the time machine, and he's like, oh, I forgot the crystals.
Honestly, my favorite my favorite thing that Napoleon, the character in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, does is he has like a whole plan with like I think they're playing Risk or something.
Oh, that's right.
And he has like a riding crop or something, and he takes it and he smashes it against the board.
I've seen that movie many times, and I don't remember all the details. Is there a water park at some point?
There's a water
It's
park.
called Waterloo.
Yeah, it's called Waterloo,
right.
Okay.
and he loves it
Yeah, he goes
for some reason.
He goes to Waterloo, and no, he's straight. This is the most trifecta. Napoleon goes to Waterloo, looks down the water slide, and says "Sacre bleu," and then
Sacre bleu.
Yeah, and then
Who
goes
cares?
down and has
not a
great-
real word.
Yeah,
It's not.
well,
No,
either
I'm
way.
saying,
Anyway,
Yeah.
in your defense.
at least do the fake word right.
Well, either way.
Fake term.
It's
Anyway.
a fun fact, that's Andrew Stevens' favorite movie.
It's not a bad movie.
No.
It's a silly movie.
And his reasoning, he's like, I love how positive it is, be excellent to each other.
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I get
And it's
why.
cool
I get
to-
where it's
The
coming from.
message is great.
Well, and it's cool to see historical characters like kind of out
Not
of their
and
context.
not taken super seriously.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I like the part where they're like,
Like
well,
what we do.
Well, remember, like, we'll travel back and leave the keys here. And they're like, oh, they're here now.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
I like it
Right.
when Billy the Kid pulls out a gun in a high school and shoots out one of the lights, and everybody cheers.
Yeah. Pre-Columbine, buddy.
That's a pre-Columbine fucking moment right there.
Yeah.
I still think that Bogus Journey was better, personally.
That is the incorrect opinion, but I respect it.
Disagree, but the
No.
shades of Seventh Seal
Yeah.
that Bogus Journey has, I love.
I still haven't seen
Right.
the third one, and I'm sure I've heard good things.
I'm-
as
I
far
will
as,
say,
I don't know if I can do it.
I'm with Zach. I think Bogus Journey is better.
Yes, thank you.
It's the weirder movie. It has a bizarre Star Trek reference.
Yeah.
Evil Bill and Ted being the robots that are like still Bill and Ted, but they're like maniacal. Like it just there's so many things about that movie where they're like, okay, so Bill and Ted are time travel guys, but like let's make them also go to hell and back,
Yeah.
and like also bring in like alien scientists
Oh,
that
with
they
their little
reference
butts?
earlier in the movie because they say Station in High Five.
Right.
Then they meet Station, and Station's a person. It's so absurd.
And Jim Martin from Faith No More's in it.
Yeah, and fucking William Sadler, who is he's up there with my favorite character actors.
Yeah,
Is
he's
fucking
great.
Grim Reaper, and it's like his defining.
Damn
role.
right.
Yeah, you're damn right. And he plays the bass.
Napoleon was basically like Julius Caesar of France. He just was holding the big military stick, came to a very uncertain time and place in France, and sort of declared himself the ruler of France. And it worked. Because after the Reign of Terror and everything, just people liked him more.
He essentially became Emperor of France, right?
He did.
I am the
I was also
Go
gonna
for
bring
it.
up that his nephew would be elected Emperor of France after the fact, and live like a full life of ruling.
Napoleon III.
With Napoleon III. Everybody
That's a whole
liked him.
story.
He was totally benevolent, and then he died, and the world moved on.
That's not 100% true. That's a story for a different day.
Everything.
Honestly.
It's
Story for a different day, Tyler.
But he was well liked.
More or less. Napoleon, he got a lot of pressure from the United States and from a few other people, including inside of France, surprisingly, that was like, release Lafayette. Like, negotiate to have him released. Because you won the war. You know what I mean? They're done, you know? And he did. And Napoleon basically had Lafayette and his family released from prison. And at first, Lafayette, like, sent Napoleon a letter. He's like, thanks, pal.
Yeah.
You know? But Napoleon was like, you're a military man who sticks very close to his principles. And, frankly, those principles do not align with what I have in mind to France. So, you can't come back in unless you swear fealty to me. And Lafayette's like, I'm not going to do that.
Pass.
my main thing.
It's a hard pass. Napoleon was never really a fan of Lafayette. In fact, he always sort of looked on him as a threat. Mm-hmm. And Napoleon was one of those guys, he was a smooth operator. He was one of those guys that, like, keep your friends close but your enemies closer, kind of a thing.
Right.
So he offered Lafayette all these, like, crazy assignments, you know, like, things like that. And Lafayette saw through it, and he was like, no, dude. I'm out of politics.
It's almost as if they're two strategic geniuses playing mental chess with each other from, like, day one.
Yeah, exactly. Lafayette's original plan was to just go back to America. Because he's loved, he's adored in America. And America straight up told him not to. Why? Because during this time, foreign relations with France and America were strained. The Reign of Terror happened, Napoleon happened, which none of that they agreed with. People were just a little leery of French people in America at the time. Sort of like after 9/11.
Yeah.
You know.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're like,
Never
so
forget
this French guy helped us do all of this stuff, but then he also kind of did this stuff over here. Mm-hmm. Now he wants to come back over here. Maybe it's just best that we just distance ourselves.
Yeah. What I mean is, when France outwardly said, hey, don't do that shit in Iraq, we were like, fuck you, France, for just a little bit. Mm-hmm. You remember, like, the whole freedom fries thing?
Yes.
Right.
How can I forget?
Well, actually, it's funny that Chris brings that up and that you bring that up, because it's almost as if, like, it's almost like if we helped the Afghan government fight the Soviets in Afghanistan in the 1980s.
We did do that.
And then 9/11 happened, and we were like, what? Look at all these terrorists.
Story for a different day, buddy. Because that is a story I do want to tell. That is a complicated, interesting, fascinating story.
Mm-hmm. It is the story of Rambo 3.
Watered down for chest-thumping Americans. Lafayette, though, slipped back into France, using the name Motier.
Oh.
Napoleon was pissed, but there was nothing he could really do about it. Because after the Reign of Terror and Napoleon's ascension, Lafayette, no one was pissed off at Lafayette anymore. Yeah. He was the least of their
they
worries.
had bigger things to be mad about.
Yeah.
Forgive and forget. Everything's fine.
But what Lafayette found when he came back to France was all of his property had been seized by the French government at the time, Robespierre, including, his holdings in French Guiana. They freed his slaves, and Napoleon immediately put them back into slavery. And what that did is actually caused revolts in French Guiana. That's a story for another day, too. Him and Adrienne, they pressed a claim, sort of, on an old family estate at La Grange. And that's where they stayed. It's there that Lafayette kind of retired a little bit from public life. And a big reason for that is that sort of right after he was out of prison, his father figure, George Washington, died. And he got very sad. And he sort of stayed out of everything for a long time. And he sort of tried to build his home at Lagrange to be like a Mount Vernon without all the slaves.
It's like Mount Vernon without the slaves and a lot more ZZ Top. I'm glad as soon as he said Lagrange, I looked at you and I was like, yep.
Also, you did it in a French laugh, which was genius. That was a stroke of fucking genius.
Anyway.
It's a cool song. They spin the guitars around and everything.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, the music video. Yeah.
ZZ Top's cool.
For a bunch of boomers.
So yeah,
My dad's a boomer.
this was a late...
I guess all our dads are.
Late 1799, December, when George Washington died. And he stayed quiet for a little while. Lafayette, he was definitely everyone's pick to deliver George Washington's eulogy. He was the closest with Washington out of anybody. John Adams, fucking anybody.
That's weird.
Well, George Washington considered him a son.
I know.
And
It's just
Lafayette considered him a father.
I mean, considering, like, how long did he know the guy? Like, I'm just saying, there's so many people.
Since he was 19.
So many people in the United States.
Yeah.
How old is he at this point?
Let's see, if he was...
612.
If he was 18 or 19 in 1776...
This is
1799, 1800.
Do the math at home, gang.
He's
30s.
He's like in his 30s.
Yeah, he's in his 30s. Okay, he's in his 30s.
I
Do the math.
dude, I
Alright.
notoriously suck at math.
37.
Don't ask me math.
I'm terrible at math.
Well, you're in
Zach,
notoriously
you good at
good
math?
company.
I'm in charge
you,
of the
Tyler.
budgeting, so I like to think
You're the
okay.
best at math.
I'm the best history boy at math.
I'm not the math boy. Come on now.
We got 3 really bad math boys.
Welcome to the Math Boys podcast. Fucking
Algebra is a thing, I guess.
But
Solve for
what
X.
what happened instead? Because again, like everyone was like, "Oh, should be Lafayette." You know what I mean? He was so close with him, so close, but he couldn't be invited to the United States at this time. So Washington's funeral went off without him, and they didn't even mention his name.
Well, that's
his funeral.
stupid.
It is stupid.
Who did the eulogy?
I don't know.
Was it Alexander Hamilton?
I don't know. I'll have to look that up. But maybe we can mention that or maybe somebody can tell me on the Discord after this episode comes out. Or on Twitter. I don't fucking know. Anyway.
I don't fucking care. That's not true, I do.
But this really did depress Lafayette. This really did. His French citizenship was reinstated. He did recover some of his old property. Because again, Napoleon was like, come on, come here. It's okay. Come here. Come here. Shh. Yeah. Shh. I'm not going to kill you. Yeah.
Just want to cut you.
Yeah. He turned down a position to be minister to America. You know, Napoleon's like, you can be minister to America if you love it so much.
Yeah, these guys
And
like you.
Lafayette was like, I'm actually too close with America to serve in that capacity, honestly. So he turned it down. Thomas Jefferson, who was president at the time, offered him a governorship over the new Louisiana territory that he purchased, the Louisiana Purchase.
Yeah.
And he turned that down as well, which is crazy. Honestly, why didn't he go for that? Honestly, that's a question I'm still perplexed by. Why didn't he go for that? Like, I don't know.
We bought it for beads, guys.
Well, they bought it from somebody who it didn't really belong to in the first place.
Or no, wait, Manhattan was bought for beads. Or, wasn't it? Something was bought.
Well, I'm sure a lot of stuff was, but Louisiana Purchase was bought for pennies by the United States to France. Napoleon is the one who sold it. And he actually was a part of a small minority of people that voted no on having Napoleon be consul for life in a very Roman sense, very Caesar sense, because that's what got Caesar
very
killed.
Palpatine sense.
Well, that's what got Caesar killed, is that he wanted to declare himself consul for life, and that's what got him murdered.
And then he was like, what are you going to do, stab me?
Exactly.
Jerry has that t-shirt.
I have that shirt.
My wife bought it for him.
Yeah.
Fun fact.
Yeah. He didn't support that. And, like, he's an older man who at this point, I just imagine Lafayette just being like, I don't care. What are you gonna do?
What are you gonna do? Stab
What
me?
are you gonna do to me?
Yeah.
You know, and Napoleon's just like, I can't fucking please this guy no matter what the fuck I do. I swear to God, if he makes any trouble for me,
Yeah.
you know. And luckily, he never made a ton of trouble because, again, he was in a minority. He couldn't really do anything.
He's like pretty much fresh out of jail, just trying to get his life back together.
Yeah.
Napoleon's like, what about this? What about this? What about? He's like, dude, I'm just
Leave me the fuck alone.
Yeah, like everything I had is gone. All the influence I had, like everything. Nobody likes me. I'm not rich anymore. Just fucking back off, man. He's like, what if I were? What if I put this hat on you? What if I put this dress on you? What if I give you this? And he's like, well, you just
That's totally how it happened, pretty much,
yeah,
because
just
like
stressing him out.
Napoleon like tried to give him a bunch of honors and stuff. No,
Yeah.
he wasn't taking it. Actually, at Napoleon's coronation, where he famously crowned himself Emperor of France, Lafayette didn't go. Didn't show up because he didn't agree with it.
Just let me die.
During this quieter time of his life, he wrote letters and exchanged gifts with Thomas Jefferson, as he did with George Washington. They were lifelong friends and pen pals, as he was with a lot of people. Lafayette wrote a fuck ton of letters. Let me just reinforce that.
How long did it take a letter to get there?
Oh,
3 months?
across the ocean, yeah, it would have taken a couple of months.
If you had a cold and wrote about your cold in a letter, by the time it got to the person, you'd have a new cold.
Or you'd be dead. Or you'd be dead.
Or you're dead.
Actually, one time, this was before the Revolution, one time he wrote John Adams, who was still in The Hague. I guess he pissed off John Adams, in a way, and John Adams ignored the letter. Lafayette was like, he wrote him another letter, and he goes, hey, you ignored my last letter. I'm sorry if I, like, pissed you off or anything. But, what the fuck, man?
Yeah.
You know?
Just calling him out on his bullshit.
Yeah, because John Adams was an unlikable dude.
Yeah.
He had the people's, like, interests in mind, but he was
Sit
was
down,
an- he
John,
was an
you
asshole.
fat motherfucker.
He was an asshole. He was an asshole.
First one-term president.
Yeah.
Also
Yeah.
second president. So
Also a political genius. Anyway, Adrienne, however, she never recovered from her time in prison. She had a lot of health things, complications that happened with her from being in prison. When they went back to the Auvergne, she just got sicker and sicker. On Christmas Day in 1802, she died. Her last words to her family, who were all around her as she died, were "Je suis tout à vous," meaning I am all yours.
Aw.
And that's how she died.
Fuck, man, you're gonna make me cry.
It's very sad.
This
Very
is
sad.
fucked up.
Adrienne
said
is
the thing
such a
and didn't do
hero
it in
of this story.
French talk, it wouldn't be so sad.
Yeah. Quick, somebody make a stupid joke. So we're a comedy podcast here.
No, it's supposed to be a
alright,
sad
alright,
moment. It's a
alright.
sad moment.
It is a sad moment. Let's just...
It's a story, guys. I'm trying to give you a good story here. Anyway,
I'm on board.
so in 1814, Napoleon was deposed, and the Bourbon monarchy was restored. As the Comte de Provence became, he was Louis's brother. He became Louis the 18th.
Too many
France.
Louis, Frank.
Well,
Frankly.
Louis the 17th was technically Louis the 16th's little boy's son, who never made it to king.
Yeah.
Right. So Louis the 18th was now the new king
He's a big boy.
of France.
It takes a lot of Louis to make a stew.
Yep.
And Lafayette pretty much told him straight up that he didn't agree with monarchies anymore and that France actually needed a republic. And like, dude, I'm done talking about this. I'm done being involved with this. He was elected to draconian Chamber of Deputies, but his opinions weren't really heard anymore. He was a dissenter and one of the very few at this time to speak out against this. But everyone had lived through the Reign of Terror and sort of low-key decided they did not want that. And any republic talk was sort of unwelcome, because it just meant violence to them. And for good reason. Shit got bad. After Napoleon came out of exile and was defeated at Waterloo, Lafayette was among those who called for his total abdication and, go away again. You know what I mean? Like, seriously, fuck off, Napoleon.
Go live on an island, you fucking dick.
Yeah. There's a story, I don't know how true this is, that Lafayette visited Napoleon in St. Helena. Napoleon said, "All right, you got me. I'm out. But now what? What, you want to go back to the fucking Reign of Terror shit? You want to hand France back over to the rabble? You don't need a strong leader anymore? What do you want instead, huh? Like, what's your evil that you're gonna pick?" Lafayette didn't have an answer for him. He just fucking left. I just thought that was insanely interesting.
Mm-hmm. That's like the historical equivalent at the end of every X-Men movie, where Magneto's like, blah blah
What
blah,
good
Charles.
did it do?
Like,
Yeah,
what good did it do?
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm gonna leave you in your plastic prison.
It's kind of like
I think that
voting
was just
Donald Trump out of office.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, you got rid of him. Now what?
Yeah.
I mean,
Anyway,
Money, money, money. Who do you love?
who do you trust?
Yeah. Joe Biden.
Yeah. Anyway.
Oh man, I can't wait for my Biden bucks to come in.
Biden bucks. Student loan debt relief.
Come on, make it happen. Make it happen.
we'll see if that one happens.
Yeah, we'll see. So yeah, he did have some political career, and yeah, he was constantly a minority dissenting voice. So he wasn't really listened to, which is fine with him, although it frustrated him. Of course it did. But in 1824, his good old buddy, President James Monroe, invited him and his son, George Washington Lafayette, to come back to America as the nation's guest.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Yeah. He accepted. In anticipation for his visit in America, songs were written about him and for him.
Yay!
Buildings were built for him bearing his name.
We didn't just put your name on it. We built the whole thing. We didn't just build a sign. We did it for you, Lafayette.
There were giant, weeks-long parties in his honor. All these things. People, when
Why are we drinking? It's because of a French guy.
Dude.
Oh, cool.
Burning Man. This is the birth of Burning Man.
Think about it. This is 1824. Most of the founding fathers are gone, dead. James Monroe is the one of the only last ones. Madison is still alive. Thomas Jefferson is alive, but he is old.
Yeah.
John Adams is 86. He's so old. He's like the last guy.
Somebody
that
shot Alexander Hamilton.
Yeah, right.
What I heard.
Yeah.
We got Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter.
He was the last guy that was from that era that founded America. And everyone in America at the time knew that this was a once in a lifetime thing to get a true founding father back, and he's going to visit everybody. Thomas Jefferson isn't visiting everybody.
No.
But
He's an
Lafayette is.
Aquacello counting his money.
Yeah.
You say Aquacello?
Yeah. Under the sea.
He's probably got Skycello going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Coachella's
that was
just getting in
Coachella.
the works.
He invented Coachella.
Oh goddamn!
That's where that comes from.
With all of the cultural appropriation.
Yeah.
Still there. Lafayette, actually, I sort of failed to mention this. During Lafayette's first visit after the Revolution, he brokered a peace deal among the Iroquois Indians. And there was one of them, because they knew him, the Oneidas. They knew him from the Revolution. And they loved him. And there was one Oneida that Lafayette wanted to take back to France with him. And he took him back to France, and he, quote-unquote, educated him and dressed him up like a white person, let's just say.
Right.
On his return back to America, shit was a lot different. He was no longer the toast of parties like he was in France. His life sort of went downhill real fast. Sort of because of Lafayette's involvement. However, the people of the Iroquois and the Oneidas, they still welcomed him back. But there was one person that definitely had a negative impact with Lafayette's intervention. That is sort of a story for another day, because I'd love to do an episode on that guy. That guy's fucking amazing. And that was the only negative thing, pretty much, that came from that discussion.
That guy went on like a crazy world tour, came home, and they're like, take that shit off.
Kind of.
You look like a dick.
Well,
you
what
look
was
like
he?
a white dick.
What was he supposed? Well, the thing is, like, what was he supposed to do when he got back to America?
Yeah.
All dressed up like that and everything. Like, was he supposed to act like Lafayette now? No one was going to consider him Lafayette.
Yeah.
No one was going to think of him in that way. Like,
if he was like, I'd like to take
sort of
out
a
a
dream
bank
world.
loan, they'd be like, no.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Here's another crazy thing is Lafayette, he went everywhere. He visited all 24 states. He visited all of them. Everywhere there were parties. Everywhere he went. Giant balls and parties. They had his face and name on everything. Drums. There's gloves with Lafayette's face on them
Cool.
to commemorate the occasion.
He's just like so hungover going from state to state. Saying
you
his
imagine-
name again and again. He's like,
Could you imagine
Me-
being
me.
hungover riding in a carriage?
yeah.
Like
Oh,
bumpy
God.
as fuck.
And you know what's on the other end of that carriage ride. You're just
Another
like,
fucking
I
party.
gotta get out and I gotta
I've ridden in
drink
an
shit.
Uber hungover as fuck, and that's rough.
Yeah. Imagine the roads are not paved. And you don't have shocks like you do in modern cars.
I'd puke in that thing.
Yeah.
So Lafayette was just a regular Slimmers Mackenzie.
No.
Nice.
Yeah. He was a hungover boy most of the time.
Just I don't want to party anymore.
Yeah. I don't want to be drunk anymore.
Oh, that's how I felt this morning.
He was received with adulation literally everywhere he went. Cities and towns were named after him. Streets and universities were named
Squares.
after him.
And squares.
Squares.
Yeah, squares.
All of that.
Squares.
If you live on the East Coast and you live in a place called Lafayette or Fayette, because the law was actually separate at this time. It was
Okay.
Lafayette. So if you live in a place called Fayette County or something like that, it's named after Lafayette, and it's named during this trip.
After his world
During
tour.
this trip,
It was a United States tour.
yeah, 1824, 1825 trip.
Played all the hits, you know.
He went everywhere. Like, I can't stress that enough. He saw every state and partied with every motherfucker in the States. You know what I mean? Him and his son.
The Andrew WK method.
Yes.
Party till you puke.
he
Party
actually met Simon Bolivar,
Ah.
who was also visiting during the time. It was kind of serendipitous. They met each other and actually became pen pals for like the rest of Lafayette's life, and
hard.
you know, pretty amazing. When we do an episode on Simon Bolivar, that'll make you guys like shit your pants a little bit more. Simon Bolivar was a force unto himself as well, and honestly, I do feel that Lafayette's unwavering ideals did affect Simon Bolivar profoundly, and sort of made him the man he was. He went to Monticello and spent a while there draining Jefferson's wine stores with him.
Regular cello.
The one online.
The one online. Jefferson, the thing was, he was getting up there in age. When they first saw each other, I guess they hugged. They knew it was going to be the last time they saw each other. You know, they're getting up there, and they knew it was going to be the last time. So they partied hard. Madison showed up. The 89-year-old Adams showed up. Like, he showed up at Monticello.
That's crazy.
And Adams hated Thomas Jefferson.
He was the last
famously.
Federalist.
But for Lafayette, Adams showed up.
It also
Monroe
helped
showed up. Madison showed up. Everybody showed up. You know, it was Lafayette, for God's sake.
It's like a reunion tour.
Yeah.
right, and it also helped that they had lots of blackjack and hookers.
Yeah.
It's another Futurama
If
reference.
there weren't hookers there, I'd be very sex workers. Pardon me.
Yeah.
I'd be very surprised.
He visited Washington's grave because, you know, he wasn't there
You
for the
got to.
funeral. He oversaw the Electoral College during the controversial election of John Quincy Adams over Andrew Jackson. And John Quincy Adams loved Lafayette. Andrew Jackson still sort of loved Lafayette. In fact, Lafayette visited Andrew Jackson at the Hermitage in Tennessee, which is crazy. Like, this guy crossed all political barriers in America, but not in France.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I think if there's anything all Americans agreed with was independence from the British.
Exactly.
And he helped do that.
And he's like the guy that had that.
He's the guy that made it happen.
Yeah.
And he was
with
still alive.
no political ties in the United States outside of that.
Yeah.
So.
And the fact that he was still alive, because again, he was a kid when it all went down.
Yeah.
The fact that he was still alive and like the rest of them were pretty much gone, that said a lot. Like, he survived a bunch of shit. Like, motherfucker went on a lot of adventures, you know? And everyone wanted to hear about it, you know? And they wanted to hear about...
Tell us about George Washington.
Tell us about Robespierre. Tell us about all sorts of, you know... And he would regale them with stories, because he loved doing that.
I bet.
Pageantry.
Yeah, oh yeah, he loved it. He was one of the very small number of foreigners to ever address a joint session of Congress. I think there's been, I think 5 or 6, maybe 7, and Lafayette was one of them. And I'm saying throughout history,
I got that ever.
to this point.
No shit, wow.
He's one of, I think, somewhere between 5 and 7 to ever do that. Over the course of 17 months, he visited all the states. On his way back to France, aboard the USS Brandywine, which was renamed because of his first battle that he was ever in, he took some dirt from Bunker Hill, a place that he fought.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Him and his son, they took a bucket of dirt from Bunker Hill.
Bucket. That's,
Yeah.
I
Took a
imagine
bucket.
it was a handful.
Nah, it was a bucket.
Big ass bucket.
And they took it back to France with them. So when Lafayette returned to France, Louis XVIII was dead. And Charles X, whom if you remember, Lafayette grew up with in school, this was also the Comte d'Artois, who was a conservative during the French Revolution. He actually survived the Reign of Terror and all of that in exile. He went to Sardinia. The Sardinian king fucking hated him and kicked him out. That guy is sort of fascinating in his own respect. But what he was doing, he was Louis XVI's brother. What he was doing was stripping away everything that the revolution had done. All the reforms they had done. And basically going back to the ancien regime. Pretending like nothing happened, basically. When Lafayette returned, he didn't like that one bit. You know, Charles X, he dissolved the Chamber of Deputies. Like, he made it way more authoritarian. Way more monarchical. You know, monarchical? I don't know. And he started appointing, like, conservatives and royalists back into power. And he suppressed the freedom of the press and freedom of speech. And shit just got real dark there in France for a bit.
This will work out well for him.
Yeah. What happened is riots broke out. Of course they did, because it's France. And it's Paris. And that's what Parisians do. Which is great. And Lafayette was a leading figure in the July Revolution of 1830 that took place over the course of a week of riots. And Charles X abdicated and went to exile, where he died in exile. Lafayette, he had a favorite pick to replace him as a constitutional monarch. His name was Louis Philippe I, and he took off all of the, the monarch regalia, the crown, all that stuff that Napoleon embraced, that Louis XVI embraced.
He wore sweatpants and a t-shirt.
Yeah. He had military dress on, but it was dressed down. It wasn't king.
I was going to say,
garb.
Trust a leader wearing military garb?
No, never do that.
Yeah.
Never do that, including Eisenhower. Yeah. Louis Philippe, he took the throne. He was a little bit more liberal, but he did sort of renege on some of his promises that he gave Lafayette. And Lafayette did this thing that I wish more Americans would do. The person that you champion, in this case, person you vote for, he was Louis Philippe's staunchest critic until the end of his life. My point is, only that if you vote for somebody, you should be their staunchest critic. Don't follow them like a goddamn sheep and fucking consider them some sort of god, you know? Like, I don't want to go too far. I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole, but I'm just saying that's not what democracies and republics are made of. They're not made of people that you need to trust to the nth degree for fucking ever just because they tell you that you should.
I totally agree with that, and I actually would say on the other side of that, understand that the person you're voting for might not be the person you...
Exactly.
The ideal person.
It's not ideal, yes.
And that's what voting is. You're not like...
That's how republicanism works.
The people who argue, I don't want to vote for the lesser evil, it's sort of like, well, then
that's how a republic works.
That's how you get
that's the function. That's a function of
I can't remember who wrote this. It was a Twitter post, but I read it and I thought it was very, very poignant. And it was, democracy isn't a limo ride to the airport.
Yeah.
It's taking a bus to the closest stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
It is. The point is if you vote for somebody and you put your trust into them, then you should be, especially if you were the person that did it, and every voter takes this responsibility when they vote, then you need to hold them accountable for everything that they do, not follow blindly like a fucking idiot. I'm done.
I agree.
Wake up, sheeple!
Yeah.
And that goes for everybody. Charles X was gone, and Louis Philippe was now, I guess, king. Yeah, he was king of France again. But his reign was marked by sort of the introduction of capitalism. There was wealthy industrialists and bankers that sort of took over the country. And that's what sort of pushed France in the direction
Of the 20th century.
of the 20th century. Well, through the 19th century into the 20th century. And there was a lot of shakeups along the way, mind you, but it began with Louis Philippe. Lafayette hounded him for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
You know, which is fucking beautiful.
Keeping him on track.
That's great. That's fucking fantastic. Now, after the events of 1830, Lafayette returned to his private life. And on May 20th, 1834... 76-year-old Marquis de Lafayette passed away due to complications with pneumonia.
Wow.
He went to a funeral that lasted a long time, and he actually collapsed at the funeral.
Oof.
He limped along for a couple of weeks.
Way to
after
make
that,
the
and
funeral
died.
about you.
Yeah, right. He was buried in Paris under the soil of Bunker Hill that they brought with them. His son
That's cool.
poured it on him, so he's buried in American soil. An American flag has always, ever since, flown over his grave, even during the Nazi occupation of World War II.
No
Jesus.
They didn't
fucking
fuck with
Christ.
it.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Isn't that insane?
Yeah.
And you can still visit this grave in Paris today. But the thing is I mean, I've just told you the whole story. It should come as no surprise to you that French people view him in a very different light than we view him.
Yeah, for sure.
They don't have statues of him. They don't name cities and roads after him in France. They don't talk about him at all. No one really eulogized Lafayette when he died. So you can visit the grave, but it's sort of at the whim of whenever the caretaker is there and the place is open. So yeah, that is a thing.
So if you're there visiting Jim Morrison's grave and the caretaker's there...
different graveyard.
Well, fair enough. I just figure all of France has... There's
There's only one graveyard.
They got one
it's
thing,
like
it's got all
the
the kids in
catacombs.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's like LA or New York. They have several.
I'm not going down there. People get lost down in those
I would
catacombs.
love to go into the Paris catacombs.
I would as well, but
Do
I
they
don't
allow
want to get
booze?
lost.
People get lost.
They
and
have
die.
tour guides.
Not if you kill them and run off into the tomb, which I
I'm not gonna
wouldn't.
kill anybody.
I couldn't.
Not
help.
if you go get drunk and go fuck next to some skulls.
That's hot.
That's what you're into? That's fine.
Of course, everyone's into that.
Dude,
Yeah.
yeah. and now we're going to watch Veronica
I'm
together,
such a
like a family.
I'm such a vanilla person.
I have
me too,
sex
I'm
in a bedroom with the lights dimmed, like a weirdo. I'm Jerry.
I'm with all that unless skulls are in the mix, and then it's
Yeah.
all bets
And
are
it
off.
turns you into a murderous maniac.
I want
Yeah.
16th century French skulls all around me while I'm injecting into my wife.
All right.
Yes.
She wouldn't have it any other way.
Some people do say about
That's really her decision, not mine.
about his grave is that he was buried there for like a reason that it was also sort of a mass grave, and he was sort of tossed in too. When he died, they didn't necessarily care about him all that much, and they just sort of unceremoniously buried him and then gave him the pomp and circumstance later.
So they're basically like, here is Lafayette and a whole bunch of other people.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
And the rest.
So one of the biggest sources for this episode is a book called Marquis, and it's called Marquis: Lafayette Reconsidered. It's a fantastic book. Let me get you the author's name.
And that's only because the Mike Duncan one isn't out yet.
Oh, I want to read that so bad too. It's about it's by I hope I am pronouncing this correctly, Laura Auricchio. It's fantastic. It's a really great book. It's my main source for this episode. And if you want to know more about like the court intrigue of what was happening during the National Assembly and States General and stuff like that, it's really interesting. I highly recommend that book. But she talks in her foreword of this book. She goes to the museum curator at Versailles and asks to see the only bust of Lafayette that they have. And the dude took time out of his day, because it's not in the main area. It's all off in this outbuilding. You have to walk to get there.
Yeah.
This guy takes time out of his day, has a big, ring of keys, and he walks out there. He's pissed off, because he doesn't care about Lafayette.
Right.
And he walks her out there and, can't find the right key. And, when they finally get in, there's, dust on everything. It's, normal people don't see the stuff that's in here. There's a bust of Lafayette. She's looking at this bust, and the curator's, annoyed.
Come on.
And he goes, why do we even have a bust of Lafayette? And, her French, her French is a second language, and she's like, pardon? And he goes, what? He just said it. He just said it slower and louder. Why do we have a bust of Lafayette? She's like, well, he was a hero. He's like a historical linchpin, And he goes, yeah, but he points at a plaque of all these names, and it's all these dead French soldiers that fought in the American Revolution. And he goes, you don't remember any of those names? And Lafayette didn't lead the French army in the Revolution. That was Rochambeau, but you don't fucking remember him, do you? And all this stuff, and yeah, she's like, well, it just sort of draws a picture of the fact that in France he's thought of very, very differently than he is
Right.
here. And I hope that is clear to you now, dear listener.
Oh, yeah.
Well, fuck.
Quite the story, isn't it?
I like him.
Yeah, I like him.
I like him too.
He's a human being. He's flawed, but he's a man of principle.
And
I respect that.
His heart was in the right place.
It was. He wanted to help.
And with his massive wealth and influence, he could have done a million worse things. Like so many men in his position before him.
Well, and a lot of men of his time and place that did do worse things. And he didn't.
Well,
so
again, my only complaint with Lafayette is that he had to go out and write Dianetics and start a Sea Org and everything, and it's just...
I thought you were going to be like, my only complaint was he was a teenager once.
he was a teenager one time.
I was never a teenager.
Yeah.
I went from 12 to 20. I don't know how it happened. I'm a biological anomaly.
I think I went from 12 to 45.
Yeah.
And then just up yearly from there.
Yep.
Yeah.
I age at a normal rate like a human being.
Yeah, well, not like you weirdos.
Yeah.
I was born angry, and I'm gonna die angry. It's
Metal.
I'm like one of those fucking keep off my lawn old guys.
Yeah.
First
Clint
of all,
Eastwood.
everyone was born angry.
Yeah.
You ever
I didn't
had-
consent to this.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't consent to reality.
Zach's a sweet man.
Man.
And Jerry is not 45.
No.
Oh, well, fuck, guys. Another one in the can.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. I hope you enjoyed.
Yeah, I
parts
definitely
1 and 2
did. And
Marquis de Lafayette.
where do we go from here, Jerry? Do we have any announcements? Zach, do we have any announcements? What's going on?
Yeah, so we actually have a pretty cool announcement. We got ourselves a new Patreon, pal.
Oh, do
Yeah, boy!
we? Who are they so we can say their name on the show?
We are going to welcome Caleb.
And Caleb has joined our Discord. And
Caleb,
honestly, Caleb's has joined the Discord, and I fucking
he's fun.
I love his fucking
like
insight.
video
dude.
games, and I love talking. Yeah.
Navy guy,
Oh yeah.
which is fantastic.
Cool.
He actually,
I thought he was a contractor for the Navy.
I don't know.
yeah.
I didn't know he was a Navy guy. I don't read everything.
Well, he got the vaccine courtesy of the United States.
oh, that's
Navy.
right.
Right.
He did say that.
Yeah, I actually don't know anything beyond that, but he actually corrected my pronunciation in the Essex episode. It's actually the forecastle, not the forecastle.
Oh, okay.
Forecastle is what he said.
I still think it's the fucksel.
Not everything's your bedroom, Zach.
How with that attitude? So, we just wanted to say...
Welcome to the History Boys family.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Absolutely.
dude. It's awesome. And you guys can also get access to the Discord if you join our Patreon.
Yeah.
And, it's super easy. Like, we got 3 tiers going on. Tier 1, for $1, you get access to the Discord. We are trying to do Beers with the Boys every 3rd Thursday of the month. That seems what we've been doing right now. Fuck it. Mm-hmm. We might as well just stick to that schedule.
Well, as much as we can.
As much as we can.
It's as cool as you think it is. We get to hang out, we get to chat, we talk about the episodes, we talk about, like, whatever.
It's fun.
Talk about life. We have a good time.
It's fun.
And, you crack a cheap beer, and it's like being on an episode of the show that's not being recorded and has way more people.
Yeah, it's great. That's for $1. For $5, it's the same thing, but you also get a shout out, which is pretty dope. And then for tier 3, you get all the above plus access to exclusive bonus content that we have on the Patreon. So things from the little mini EP thing that I did to the quiz show that we were referencing earlier. To
And we got plans for a lot of stuff too.
Totally,
we do. We got plans for a lot of stuff. To bring you on Patreon.
Coming down the old pike.
It's coming down the old pike.
Oh yeah, it's great. Join us.
It's fun. It's
One
fun.
of us.
One of us.
Yeah.
Anyway.
You get the point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're the History Boys.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Gee whiz, we are.
And I'm Chris Whedon. Tired and ready to eat some food or something. I don't know.
I'm Tyler Armitrout. I'm still like a bag of pristine assholes.
He's a bag of slightly drunker assholes.
They're slightly drunker. But I'd like to think it adds to the flavor complexity.
Yes.
I am Zach Meck. I am not hungover anymore, which is nice, but boy, do my kidneys hurt.
Yeah. Drink the pain away.
Yes.
No, I'm kidding.
But I am also a history boy.
And I am Jerry Nash, always your humble history boy. Thank you so much for listening to our show, as always. It means so much to us. If you want to follow us on social media, we are on Facebook, we are on Twitter, we are on Instagram. Hit us up there. We also have an email, historyboyspodcast@gmail.com. Hit us up on any one of those. We always love hearing from you. Seriously, we do. It really makes our day. I weep when I read some of your emails. It's amazing.
With joy.
Yes. I figured that was inferred. And if you're interested in helping out our show, and I really hope that you are, especially if you're one of our loyal listeners, and I know we have some loyal listeners out there because we have some OG listeners that have been with us for a very long time. Please help us out and give us a 5-star review wherever you can. and it really means more. Let's fucking be real here. It really means more on Apple Podcasts. It just helps us fucking get out there. I said I was going to do this a long time ago. I'm only going to do this on a whim. Whenever I decide. How's that?
Okay, fair enough.
I'm going to be dictator of whenever this happens.
You're Daddy Jerry. We get that.
Because it's a 5-star review. And I feel like every now and again, I'm going to read 5-star reviews. Because it's fun. Yeah. And it makes me weep. It makes me hurt inside in a good way. Quote, hands down my favorite podcast, dear Lord.
Aw.
Dear Lord. Historical or others. All the boys bring something unique to the table, whether it's comedic relief, hot takes, or outlandish theories and explanations.
That's probably
Looking at you two, Chris and Tyler. He says 10 out of 10 would recommend. Excited for more in the future.
Oh, that's great.
That's fucking fantastic. I fucking love that.
It's the
Thank you
closest
so
I've
much.
ever gotten to being referenced in a review.
No, again, thank you so much. Leave us a review if you are, interested in helping us out. If you want to be a dick to us, write it on social media. Put it in public so we can publicly mock you or privately mock you.
But yeah, you'll definitely be
Either way,
mocked.
you'll be mocked if you're going to be a negative fucker. Because, like all of our mothers have said at one point or another, if you have nothing nice to say,
don't say anything at
say
all.
nothing at all. So, give us a 5-star review. I've no shame in asking for that. Give us a 5-star review. Let's all be nice. Let's all be good to each other. And I again, thank you so much for listening, and have a great one.
Love you. Bye.
Without a lot of fun, we'll see you next time, or I guess we won't.